Hello Steelers, and welcome to this game of GDA2 by Dave Brown, published by Right Switch Press a couple of years ago. I've only just got around to starting to make battle reports of this. I've already done one recently, and I'm just going to try a different one now. I'm going to add a little bit of cavalry into this one. You may have seen recently, depending on how these videos come out, but I played a Black Powder battle report using the Black Powder epic figures, which I've been painting for the last year or so at this point. I wanted to get as many of them on the table as possible, even though I'm about 3/4 of the way through the two starter boxes. And I thought, well, what I can do is I can play a game of Black Powder. I can then also play a game of GDA2 and see how the two kind of change and differ. The same scenario, slightly different sets of rules. And just see how they change the game and how it goes, basically. So the scenario is a very rough one that I kind of just quickly put together. It is based very, very loosely on the Battle of Quatre-Bras. We've got the crossroads here, the famous crossroads here, held by the British and Dutch and Brunswicks, and he's being attacked by the French down the bottom of the hill there. I'll show you the table in a second. I will also just put the orders of battle up as well. I'm not doing the normal scouting moves and the reconnaissance moves that you do in GDA2. I'm just basically putting the figures on the table as they are. I've got quite a few in reserve. They will be turning up. The British have got to kind of basically reinforce their line. The French have also got to reinforce their successes if they have them. The French simply have to capture the objective of the crossroads. That's pretty much their raison d'etre for being here. Once they've captured that, they can cut the road down to Namur, and they can cut off the Prussians kicking about over there somewhere. The British have just got to keep on top of that, and we're going to have a 12-turn game. So if the French haven't done it by the 12th turn, it is game over for them. There is no two ways about it. It's that simple. They've got to kick them off, and they've got to be in possession of it. So they have to have at least one unit on the crossroads at the end of the 12th turn, and that's it. Game over. Right, so without further ado, I'll quickly show you the table. I will show you like the reserves, they're just off the table there. I'll show you the forces that we got on the table, and we'll go from there. We'll just start straight into this game and crack onto it, and hopefully this should be a good and fun, entertaining game of GDA2. So this is our table looking from the French lines. Here's the French lines. At the moment they've only got 3 brigades on. They've got 1 infantry brigade over here, which is it's quite a heavy hitting one. There's 5 battalions in that with a battery of guns, and also it's a skirmish line as well. And then over here we have a 4 battalion brigade, and that is also has 2 guns on it, 2 batteries of guns. And then we've got a light cavalry brigade as well, each of 4 squadrons in there. No, sorry, 2 squadrons, each of large hussars and lancers, and they've got some mobile artillery as well with them. Up on the ridge, we got a Allied infantry battalion over there, made up of 4 units, 2 line and also 2 Dutch line as well, and then they have a battery attached. And then over here a bit of a bigger unit as well, which is another brigade. So this is made up of 2 line and also a light battalion. And also over here we have Brunswickers in the fields, in the woods should I say, but these guys are in skirmish order. As I say, this is only based on Quatre-Bras, so I know the Brunswicks weren't in the woods over here. They've also got a light cavalry battalion on there as well. Meanwhile, they have, both sides have got, this is their reserves. So the French have got a guard brigade that's made up of 2 cavalry. So we've got the grenadiers, the cheval, and also the chasseurs, the cheval, and then 2 grenadier battalions as well, and obviously they're skirmishers, and also some 12-pounder guns. They are on their way. They're also supported there by a heavy cavalry brigade as well, which is also on its way. And then over here for the British, they've got the Guards, King's German Legion, a light battalion and also a line battalion in another brigade there. on its way, and then we've also got a heavy cavalry brigade as well, made up of 4 squadrons there of household cavalry, Scots Greys and things. So a bit of a mix. The British have got to try to get their stuff on and really just, you know, hold that the crossroads as long as they can while they can get their reserves in. Meanwhile the French, as I say, just got to get up that field and give them a good punch in if they can and break through through that road. Let's see if they can do it or not. So first things first, we are rolling for our brigade ADCs, sorry, for our ADCs. British in red, obviously, French in blue. Any 1s and 2s, and they don't get them. They've got potentially 5 to grab either side, so let's have a look at the French. French have got all 5 of theirs. It's going to be very useful early on in the battle, probably less so as the battle goes on, because they will have more units to supply. The British have only got 4 of theirs, so there's the 4 British. Not that they really need them, but they might lose initiative, and there's the 5 French. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to distribute these amongst the units, and they will decide what they're going to do in this turn. Okay, this was quite simple basically. For the British, because they only had 4 ADCs, they're given 2 each to 2 of each of their batteries for an artillery assault. Seems like the sensible thing to do as the French are coming across this field. The French have also given an artillery assault to their central battery here. If it gets through its command roll, and then it says they have split up the 1, 2, 3 brigade re-rolls for each of these units here. So we're going to go through each one and see if the brigades actually do what they're supposed to do. They're going to have a re-roll for this. So the French one first, brigade here, 1 or 2, they become hesitant. Remember, they got that re-roll. So let's see, 4. So that's grand. They're okay. So I'll just take that off. Our next one over here. These fellas, 1, so they've failed their first roll, so they're going to take a re-roll with that brigade, re-roll. 5, they passed it this time, so they are no longer hesitant. And then finally, the old horses on the bike, the donkey wallopers, see what they are, 6, they're fine, so they passed it. So I'm just going to take that brigade, re-roll off there immediately. So for the British, again starting over on the right, these ones don't have re-rolls. So the first guys over here, these ones have got the attached battery here, so if they fail this and become hesitant, they potentially, well, they will lose that artillery assault tasking, unfortunately for them. A 6, so they're okay. The second unit here, the same again, they've got the artillery assault. They may lose it if they fail their test here. Should be rolling red, shouldn't I, for British, not blue. 3, what was I thinking? 3, they're fine, they passed it. Then finally, the cavalry at the back, same again, 1 or a 2, and they failed it, otherwise they are okay to obey orders. A 2, they have failed it. They didn't get a re-roll, so they are now hesitant. So that means the British have got 1 hesitant brigade when it comes to their initiative roll. Right, so we're rolling for initiative. So now the British are rolling 3 dice, and they take the lowest 2 scores. The French are just rolling theirs. Whoever gets the highest gets to choose if they want to be the phasing or non-phasing player. So let's have a look what we got. The French have got 3 and a 3 is a 6. The British have got 2 1s and a 3. Double 1 doesn't count for anything in this, but it means that the French have got the choice, and of course the French are going to take the initiative. So I'll get these moved, because that's what they're going to do next, is basically again move forward, and then we'll get onto the firing, I think. Just to give you a quick overview of what has happened, very little to be perfectly honest. These artillery over here have limbered up because they were kind of out of targets, so they're going to move forward, try to get to a position that they can fire, hopefully on the flanks of the British. Skirmishers have moved forward on both brigades, and meanwhile the large lumps of men have also moved forward as well, those battalions starting their attack. And we've also just moved forward the cavalry as well, just slightly forward. I don't want to push them forward too much just yet. I want to kind of get across the field a little bit with them, I think, and then start to attack, or at least force the British to form into squares. Now we've got 3 batteries that can fire, so I'm going to skip the firing phase, the skirmish phase, the skirmish fire phase, and we're going to go straight onto the artillery. So we've got the 3 batteries for the French will fire first, then we've got the 2 batteries here for the British, and they will fire afterwards. So the first battery firing is this French unit here, the firing with artillery assault at this British one over here, which has also got artillery assault on it as well. They have 1 artillery fire modifier, which is a -1. It's only one, and that is the fact that it's at long range. I think they're about 60 centimeters away, so they're at long range. So it means it becomes inferior fire on their. No, it doesn't become weak fire; it becomes inferior fire. But because they're using that assault fire, they are getting 2 casualty dice, and I've got those as green ones. So we're rolling the 3 for the two blue for the actual artillery effect, then 2 green for the casualty dice as well. These need 4, 5s, and 6s to cause casualties, and these we just roll and look up on the table. So we roll our dice, and it's an inferior battery fire. So let's see what we got. So we've got 1 casualty automatically. That's the 6. A 2 doesn't count for anything. We've got a 2 and a 6 there on the actual fire chart itself, so that's an 8. An 8 on inferior battery is 1 casualty, so that's actually translates into 2 casualties for that British unit there. So good going. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to now fire with this other battery here, not using artillery assault, and they're going to fire once again at that same unit. They can just catch them from where they are down that corridor of units. This time they don't get that extra 2 dice, they're just rolling on the inferior fire chart, so we check that, and that's in 11 this time, even better. 10 plus is basically 2 hits and a discipline test, so that's 4 hits on that British artillery unit, so that's not good. 2 more and then it will start to get shaken. So this is for the artillery. It's basically it's a line artillery unit, so we just roll a straight dice and just see what we need. We basically need a 7 up to pass it, otherwise we are unformed, or if they double 1 then it's a retreat. If they get a double 6 they actually get to reduce one of their those casualties. So that's 4. A 4 is they are unformed, at least they haven't retreated. Then I'm going to quickly jump over here, and we've got the horse artillery battery over here. These are just going to fire at the British line up on the edge there. There's no skirmishes in the way, so there's no bounce through. They're just going to fire straight up. This is just 1 inferior shot. They don't have artillery assault on these guys, so it's just a straight roll on that inferior roll because they are at long range. So let's see what they get. They've got a 4, and for that is a casualty on them. They've taken a fatigue casualty themselves, so they've shot themselves in the foot, literally. So with the French guns now fired, the British guns are both going to fire, and both of them are going to fire at the French guns here. I'm just going to try to break them up as much as possible because they're going to cause quite a bit of damage, I think, over the course of the battle. So we're just try and get rid of them as early on as we can. So the first one is firing as before, inferior fire, but it does get those 2 extra casualty dice. Meanwhile, the other one, because it's unformed and he's also firing at long range, now has 2 negative modifiers. So that means it is only rolling 1 dice, but it also 1 casualty dice, but it also gets an extra 2 dice because it is firing its artillery assault. So what we're going to do is we'll start with them. So looking at 4s up on any of these dice, and they've got 2 3s and a 4, so that's not good, is it? But at least it's caused 1 casualty on that French unit, so we'll stick that down there. There it is. And then we've got the other shot, though. This time we're going to be rolling on that table, but it's inferior fire once again, just because of the range. So, but they've still got 2 casualty dice. So 1 casualty caused by the casualty dice, that's a 6 and a 2, and then we've also got a 10 as well. And actually that's a 2 more hits plus a discipline test for the French. So that's 1, 2, 3 hits, so that causes them 4, so that was actually worth doing because that's really shook that French unit up. These are going to have to then do that discipline test. These are line, it's a line battery, so they are basically rolling. They need a 7 up to stay where they are, otherwise they will become unformed on a 6 to a 3 or retreat on a 2, and they don't want to retreat, do they? They can reduce a casualty as well if they get a double 6. Let's see, that's a 4, so that's not good. So that is, they are unformed as well, so that was worthwhile the British doing. Right, we're going to go straight into round 2, turn 2, and we are going to go straight on 4, checking for ADCs. So let's have a look what we got. Right, the French, ooh, fortunately for them, they only have 2 this turn, so let's just stick those down. So that's not going to do them a huge amount of use. The British, on the other hand, they have taken 3 this turn. So So yeah, that's going to certainly affect those rolls. So what I'm going to do is I'll sort those out, put them where I want them to go, and then we shall come back and do the initiative roll. Okay, just to show you quickly where I put those taskings. First of all, the French two, they only had two, so I've given them both a brigade re-roll on the main brigades, on the infantry brigades there, just to get them moving up that hill if they can. Meanwhile, the British over here, they put an artillery assault on this unit over here. Hopefully they will pass their brigade roll, and they have a brigade roll on this brigade because this unit of artillery is unformed and it's going to take them an entire turn to reform. If they're hesitant, they can't do that, so we're basically going to try to sort them out that way. Right, okay, we're going to roll for our initiative now. So the British have got an extra 2 dice in there, taking their lowest. The French, unfortunately for them, have got an extra 3 in there. So let's just see what we get with that. The British have got 6, 6 and a 1, so they have to take their 2 lowest, which is a 6 and a 1. That would have normally counted to give them an extra ADC, I think, just off the top of my head, but because they are taking the lowest dice they have to roll, they have to take the 6 and a 1 rather than the 2 6s. So they've still got a 7, which is pretty good. The French, on the other hand, their lowest numbers are 1 and a 3. They've got 5, 5, a 3, a 3 and a 1. Lowest ones being a 5 and a 3, so the British have seized the initiative, so they are going to take it. So we'll go through and see if any units are hesitant or not, and we'll see what they do with the initiative this time. Right, since the British have got the initiative, they're going to go first with their testing. So these ones have got a brigade re-roll, so they need anything but a 1 or a 2. Let's just see, otherwise they become hesitant. They get a re-roll on it. Let's have a look. We've got a 4, so they are no longer, they're not hesitant. Our second brigade of infantry here, see what they get. 6, they're fine. And then finally the cavalry brigade, who were hesitant last time, they are 5. So all the British ones are 5. Oh, fine, I will take off that brigade re-roll in a second. French, meanwhile, and as I say, we've got a couple of re-rolls here for these. So for the first one is fine, so let's just get rid of that brigade re-roll so I know it's gone. Second one, they got 5 there, is a 6, they are also fine. And then for the cavalry, who don't have a re-roll, let's see, these ones over here, let's have a look, a 6 for them, and that means they are also fine as well, so no hesitant brigades this turn. Okay, in the British movement phase, they did nothing, they just stayed there apart from this unit, this artillery battery reformed. Meanwhile, the French in theirs, they basically pushed forward. They've now almost wheeled their skirmishers to start firing at the Brunswicks who are in the trees over here. The rest of the brigade has moved forward, as has this one, and so here. And the cavalry as well are just kind of crossing these streams to start to threaten the flank up here and try to get up on that road. Horse artillery has also moved forward as well. And then we're going to go on to firing. So we've got our first bit of firing, skirmishing. We've got the light battalion of the Brunswicks here. They are firing at the French skirmishers. French skirmishers are returning fire. The French skirmishers are only 3 bases that are actually in range, so I'm only going to allow 3 bases to fire. The Brunswicks, on the other hand, have got 5 dice because they're a light battalion, not a skirmish line. So we're rolling 5 dice, and they get 4s up are hits. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. Now, if that would have been only skirmish tasking, they would have also got to roll on the gloat. They would have caused a discipline test on the French skirmishers. It isn't, so the French have actually only taken 2 casualties out of that, so that's almost taken off one of their bases. I'll stick a casualty marker down there. So the French fire back. They're firing back with 4 dice. They've got 3 bases that can fire, plus an extra 1 for being skirmishers. Same again, 4s up, and every 2 hits is a hit. So they've got 2 5s, a 3 and a 2, so that is just 1 hit on the Brunswicks. So 1-0 to the Brunswicks so far. So we're moving swiftly onto artillery fire, and this unit here, the British unit using artillery tasking of artillery assault, is going to be firing down. It's at this battalion down here. Who are they anyway? Let's find out. It's the 1st, 2nd Leger, so it's the light brigade. And they're just firing, light battalion. They're just firing down at them. It's effective range, so they are just rolling on the normal standard battery fire, but they are firing at a column, and so they get a +1 casualty dice for that. Let's see what happens. Oh, and they also get those 2 extra dice as well for firing as artillery assault. I did forget about that. So the green dice are casualty dice, and that's a 6, a 5 and a 5, so that's 3 actual hits from the casualty dice, but also a 3, which is 4 or less, so that's actually a fatigue casualty on them, but 3 hits on the French, but nothing else. Meanwhile, the other French battery, the British battery up here is just reformed, so they can't do anything else. Meanwhile, the French horse artillery have limbered up and they're going to move out, or they're limbered and then moved. So we've only got, and the other battery for the French has also moved on the left flank, and the one in the middle has reformed. So there's only one left to fire, and that's this one here. They are going to fire at the Highlanders here. They're not going to get bounced through, they're just going to fire straight at them. It is going to be inferior fire. They're not firing at the skirmishers, they're firing at the unit itself. So this is an inferior fire because of the range, and that's it. So let's just see what it gets. That's an 11. That is 2 hits and a discipline test on those Highlanders. So we have to roll for that discipline test. These are line infantry. They've got a 6, so they are unformed, and they've also taken those 2 hits as well. So 2 hits, 2 casualties, and they are unformed. Bad news for them. Right, start of turn 3. Let's see and get those ADCs, see who gets what. Let's have a little look here. We got the British have got 3, so that provides 2 extra on theirs. Let's see, we've got 1, 2 and 3, just stick those there so I remember. Then the French have also got 3 as well. So those ADCs for the French, they basically put a brigade reroll on these guys here. They want to get them moving because they're going to try to come in and swing down the line of the British flank. Meanwhile, the British are putting artillery assaults over here and a brigade reroll on that brigade as well, just to see if they can get it. And finally, the French have spent 2 on a reserves and forwards. They are going to bring forward their guard, and they're going to get them on, and get them on fast as well. Now, they're keeping their heavy cavalry off, but they have brought on the guard, or they want to bring on the guard. That's the next thing they're going to do, so that will come in on the reserve move. Right, so now we'll go straight onto initiative and see who wins this turn. Okay, so before we go on to the initiative, we have to see who is hesitant, who isn't. We're going to start with the British. The unit right on the very end has got an unformed line unit in there, and has also taken hits on its battery. So let's see, 1 or a 2, it is hesitant. 5, it isn't, so that's good. The unit that's got the brigade that's got a brigade re-roll on it here, so let's see if they get it or not. Fine, they've passed it anyway. And then also the cavalry as well on top of that. 2, no, the cavalry are hesitant again, as they were in the first turn. So put down a hesitant marker on those guys. Can get rid of that brigade mark as well, because we know that's happened. So for the French, we've got, starting over here, we've got a brigade re-roll on these guys. So let's just see. So 6, so they passed it, so we don't need that brigade re-roll anyway. Then we've also got the one in the centre. Let's see what they get. They find they passed it, and then also the cavalry, if they passed it, they passed it as well. All the French have passed it. So the French are going to have 2 dice against the British 3 dice. So testing for initiative now. I got this wrong in the second turn. I think I will put a note up on the screen in the second turn. We didn't really change much, but let's just see. So the French have scored a 9. The British, meanwhile, have got a 2, 3 and a 4. 2, 3 and a 4. So that takes them down to 5. That means the French have won the initiative, and they are, of course, going to be the phasing player. So we'll go straight into charges. The French are not declaring any. The British can't, because the only one that they probably could do really is their cavalry, but they're hesitant. So we're going to go straight into movement, and I'll show you what's happened there. Right, so in GDA you do your normal tactical movement, then you do your reserve movement. So in the tactical movement, the French basically push forward over here, as they were doing anyway. The skirmishers have now turned, and they're facing the Brunswicks to have a little bit of a skirmish with them in the woods. Meanwhile, we've got this brigade has pushed forward. Its skirmishers has also come up ready to engage the 95th Rifle skirmishers over there. They've also pushed forward their horse artillery and unlimbered them, so they're going to be able to fire. And they're going to fire up there into those units up on the crest. The cavalry have broken. One cavalry has, the lancers are broken out of the stream. Meanwhile, the other ones are just coming through those ponds there just to get forward. It slowed them up, but I'm not that fussed. The artillery battery over here has limbered up, ready to move. And then in the reserves, the British didn't do anything apart from unform the Highlander unit there. They couldn't really do much else, they're just kind of waiting at this point. Then they released the Guard Reserve. This is the French, of course, and these came on here. They also used the forwards tasking. What I forgot is you had to roll to see if this brigade was hesitant or not. I tested for it off camera and I got a 5, so they weren't hesitant. If they were hesitant, they wouldn't have come on, but they did. So we brought on the Chasseurs à Cheval. We've also got the Grenadiers à Cheval, their skirmish line, and also the 2 Grenadier battalions as well. I kind of want to get them on the table now, as the French are starting to get into possibly into close combat at some point soon enough. There might be some charges in the next couple of turns, I would have thought. So that's kind of where we're at movement wise with this turn. So we're going to go straight over onto skirmishing. So we've got the 2 skirmish lines over here firing at one another. We've got the 95th, they get an extra dice because they're rifles, and we've got the French down here, just the normal voltigeurs. They get to fire first, so they've got 5 dice because they've got 4 bases plus 1 for being skirmishers. So let's see what they get, and they're getting, they've got 3 6s there. That would count if they've got a tasking, and 2 and a 1. So that has caused 1 hit on the 95th. So let me just stick that on there, and then the 95th get to fire back, and same again, hitting on 4s up. So it's casualty dice. I'm just going to do this all on this side because it doesn't affect anything else. So, oh, they've hit with 1, and that's it. So that doesn't cause any damage because you need 2 hits for a skirmish to do anything. And then over here we've got the fighting in not Bosselwood. So we got the Brunswick's Lights versus the skirmish line here. So the skirmish line, they're firing first. They're firing with 7 dice. So it's got 6 bases plus 1. So let's see if they do more damage than the other ones did. That was a 6, just knocked it over. So 1, 2, 3 hits. So that causes only 1 hit on the Brunswick. So I'll just tip that over onto a 1, onto 2. Sorry. So that's them. If they take another one, they will lose a base. So that goes there, and then they return fire, and they're rolling 5 dice because they're a light battalion, not a skirmish line. But they've got 1, 2, 3 hits in there, so that is another hit on the French. So what that does is it takes off 1 base. So I'm going to take that base off and just take off that dice as well to show that they took that hit. Every 3 hits on a skirmish line will take off a base. And then over here we've got the French horse artillery have just drawn up, and they're going to fire at the line infantry at the front there. They're only rolling 1 dice. It's literally just a casualty dice because they moved and unlimbered. So a 1 is nothing, but it is a fatigue casualty on them. So that's not good. So that takes them up to 2. They've hardly done anything really, this horse artillery unit. Then our next bit of firing is from the French artillery battery down here, firing up here at the Scots on the hill. They're just firing, it's just an inferior battery fire. So 2d6, nothing else. And that's a 7. A 7 is just 1 hit. Then we've got British artillery is firing, and they are going to fire with their artillery assault at the French infantry in front of them. I think it's a light infantry, isn't it? So they're rolling their 2 dice. It's a normal effective fire, but they've got 3 extra casualty dice because they're firing artillery. They're firing at column, so that's an extra dice. They're also firing their artillery assault, so that's an extra 2 dice. So let's just see. Green dice needs 4s up. So we've got 6 on the actual fire itself, and also 3 casualties. So I'll just bung those straight on anyway. So that takes them up to 6. That means they are now not faltering yet, I think, but we'll just look at that in a second. And then we've also got 6 on in effect standard battery fire. Sorry, plus 1. Sorry, it's 1 plus a test, a discipline test. If it was canister, it's not there, just out of canister range. So it's another casualty on them. So that takes them up to 7 now. Then we've got 1 more cannonade, and that is coming from the British units up here, firing straight down directly at the French in front of them. This is just a straight roll, but it is an effective standard battery fire. They're not in canister. So let's just see what we get. We get 10, that's good. That is 3 casualties and a discipline test. So they're going to have to make that discipline test immediately. So we roll for that and see what we get. This is a line unit. They need 7 up. 10, they are fine, they can carry on, no worries for them. Okay, so we're going to go straight onto the ADCs of turn 4. Now, the reason for this is because there was no volley firing from anybody, so we just skipped over. There was no charges or combat to do. So we're straight into the next one. Let's see who gets and who doesn't get ADCs. Ooh, that's not looking good for the Brits. Right, they've got 2 ADCs this turn, so stick those there so I remember. Meanwhile, the French have got 1, 2, 3 ADCs. So about the same for each actually, so 3 against 2. I will then distribute those where they are required and I'll show you where to put them. Okay, I'll put out my brigade taskings. The French have just gone for 3 brigade rerolls on this and this brigade. The British on the other hand have gone for a forwards for the cavalry over here because they are just in range to be able to sweep down and attack the French infantry down here in the valley. That's what they're planning on doing, so hopefully their brigade will not be hesitant when it comes to rolling for it. So we're going to roll that right now. I'm going to work my way through and roll them. So we're going to start with the British over there, the first one. So have a look, 1 or a 2, and they are hesitant. The second British one. 1, they're hesitant as well. Now the cavalry one, this is the important one. Are these going to be hesitant or not? Yes, they are, so they will lose that tasking, unfortunately for them. So we're going to go back through the French now. Start with their cavalry. 4, they're fine. This unit here, they get a reroll, remember. 3, they're fine anyway. This unit here, they get a reroll because they need it. They had a 1 there, so we rolled again, a 3, so they passed it this time, so I'll take that off, reminding myself. And then the last one over here, oops, I'll roll it in. This is the guard, I will roll it in the tray. A 3, they passed it, so we can get rid of that as well. So that means there are no hesitant French units, but every British unit is hesitant. Okay, quick roll here for the initiative. The British are rolling 5 dice because of their 3 hesitant units. So I don't think, unless the French are incredibly unlucky, I think they're going to get the initiative. Let's see. Well, maybe. The French have actually only got 4. The British have also only got 4. But the French had the initiative in the last phase, so they retain the initiative. Okay, so just in the movement turn, the French kind of just plodded along. There's no real major differences at the moment. They're just kind of getting up that line as quick as they can. So I'm going to go straight onto the skirmishing, and we are starting. I'm going to start over on this corner here. We've got the French skirmishers. There's 4 of them, plus 1 dice for being skirmishers, firing at the 95th, hitting on casualties. Casualty dice are 4s up. And as you know, we've got 1, 2, 3 hits. So that translates into 1 hit for those guys, so that just takes them over onto 2. They return fire. They're 95th, so this time they got 4 dice for their bases. They get another dice for being 95th and another dice for being skirmishers in general, and then they're just firing again. See what they get, see if they can actually hit a tree this time. So that is 2 hits, so that translates into 1 hit on the French skirmishers. Finally, well done lads. Right, just while I'm over on this end, I'm actually going to fire the French artillery as well. It's slightly out of turn, but rather than taking the camera away and resetting it up, I'm just going to do it here and now because it won't affect anything on the other side of the table anyway. So we'll just do that very quickly. This is standard battery fire. They're just too far away. They're firing again, once again at the infantry on the line up there. So they are going to be hitting with 2d6. It's just a normal roll, but it is standard battery fire. Let's see what they get for that. That's an 8. An 8 is 1 casualty, and also it would be a discipline test if it was canister. It isn't, so the British take 1 casualty. So over here we've got quite a bit of skirmish fire. I've got the French firing at the Brunswick, so I've got the Brunswick returning fire at the French. Then we've got the 95th on that line as well, firing down. And I've already done it over on that side, and then we'll move on to the artillery fire. So we're starting with the French, firing 6 dice at the Brunswicks. Let's have a look. They have hit on. They've taken 4 hits, so that actually increases theirs. Now, I believe because these are not actually skirmishers and it's a light infantry unit, these will just convert into hits on the unit rather than taking bases off. So these will now become, that will give them 4 damage. That would have been a base removal and an extra damage, but because they are an actual light battalion that can reform into line or column or whatever, they're just taking the hits. At least that's how I'm playing it. Right, then we've got the British and Brunswick's return fire. They are firing by the Brunswicks with 5 dice. Let's have a look what they get. They've got 1, 2, 3 hits. That converts into 1 hit on those French skirmishers, which is not enough to remove a base yet, but slowly wearing them down. Now we've also got our 4 British light infantry up there, so they are 4 bases firing. They are also riflemen, so they get an extra 1 plus that extra 1 for being skirmishers as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread that. They're firing at these 3 columns as they're coming up, so I'm going to spread the fire across those columns as they're coming up. Right, so let's roll that, see what happens. These have hit with 1, 2, 3, 4 hits, so that translates into 2 hits. There are more riflemen on this side here than there are over here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit these 2 columns here with those hits, so they're going to take 1 hit each. I think that's probably the fairest thing I can do. They can fire back those columns, but they're only firing back with 1 casualty dice, and they're going to get some artillery umpty. I think that's probably going to be the next thing for them. So I think that's all the skirmish firing done. So we're now going to go on to artillery fire. I've already done the artillery fire for the French because they were over on the other side anyway, so let me just put these tabs down here for those guys so we know they're taking damage. And we're going to move straight onto the artillery fire for these ones over here. We are now firing with canister. Although they're hesitant, I don't think that gives them any negatives on their fire, but they are firing at canister range, so they're just going to be basically ripping into the French. This may cause a discipline test, and they are going to keep firing at their same target here. We've already taken 7 hits anyway, so let's just see what happens with that. And we've got a 7. And this is standard battery fire, so this is, yes, it's 1 casualty plus a discipline test, so that takes them now up to 8, and they are going to have to now take that discipline test, so they're rolling 2d6. They have 6 plus casualties, so they're actually now down to reservist level. They're not unformed, but yeah, so they drop down a level, so they've been demoted, so it's going to be a bit harder for them to hold on, but let's just see. If they do, they've got a 5. A 5 is not good for them. They become unformed. Anything less than that, and they would have started to retreat. So thankfully for them, that at least has kept them there, even if they are unformed. As I said, there's no French cannon firing because, unfortunately for them, everything is currently limbered. That's the problem, we're fighting uphill, I guess. Right, so we've got British cannon is going to fire again at these guys down here. Same again, these are in... I've just noticed these fellas are facing backwards. Get them turned back around. They are firing at close range, so they may cause a discipline test. You never know. Let's have a look. It is regular. Oh, double 1. That is a fatigue casualty to them. That also causes a low on ammunition as well. So that means they're going to have to spend one of their caissons to actually get their artillery back. So that's low on ammo, and also has turned them into a 5 hits they've taken as well. So oof, not good. So we go on to volley fire. Now for the British, they've got skirmishers in front of them, so they can't volley fire. The French could volley fire, but because they're in columns, they're only rolling 1 dice. Now the problem is with you rolling 1 dice, they could roll a 1. If they roll a 1, they get fire discipline, which means they have to become disciplined again, and also they lose a casualty as well through fatigue. So there's a 1 in 6 chance of them doing that. I don't think they're going to do it because it is too much of a risk at this point, and a lot of these units are damaged at this point, so I don't want to do it. So we're going to go straight on to turn 5. Right, well I think this might be quite an important role actually, because whoever can get the initiative here can really get the jump on the other, and the British are just can't. They want to release those cavalry into the French down in the bottom of the hill. I mean, and just gallop at everything. So before any command rolls are rolled, we put on a caisson for the low on ammunition British guns. So if they're not a hesitant unit, then they will be they'll be able to replenish by the end of the turn. Let's just see how many ADCs we get anyway. Ouch, that's not good for the French. 3 for the British, and only 1 for the French. So let's just put those there to remind me. Right, she'll distribute these, and then we shall do the initiative. Right, okay, what I've done is I have put a brigade reroll on the British cavalry because they want to charge into these ones down here. The French and also an artillery assault as well on the guns here because they want to absolutely batter this unit here if they can do. At least I think this is probably going to go the way of the infantry if the charge is declared and if the British win their if they win the initiative in the first place. But it's going to halt the French a little bit and just make them think about it, think about their life choices. Meanwhile, over here, as I said, we put a case on the low on artillery unit, hoping that they will be able to, they won't be hesitant. And the French have put a brigade reroll over on their cavalry on the flank because they want to start them coming up and trying to harass that British flank on the British left if they can. So let's start with the French, and we're going to go from left to right. So we're going to start with this unit here. It doesn't have a reroll, so 1 or 2, and it is hesitant. 6, no, it's fine. Then we got the guard. See what they get. 1, they are hesitant, and they didn't get a reroll either. Then we've got this unit over here. They're fine, and then the cavalry themselves, they get a brigade reroll, as I said. 3, they don't need it, so they're past it anyway. So the British on the hill, this one's important for the caisson because the caisson doesn't get lost, it's just that they don't get to use it this turn. Let's have a look at 1. No, they are hesitant. Then we've also got these guys here. These ones are not getting a reroll, so let's see what they've got. They're fine. Then the cavalry with the reroll, let's see what they've got. 5, they're fine, they passed it, so they didn't need a reroll. So the British have got 1 hesitant unit. So I shall roll for the initiative and let's see what they get from that. Right, let's see what goes on here. I thought the British actually need to get the initiative. They don't, to be honest, because they can still declare a charge before anybody moves anyway. So it comes before as part of the movement phase. But let's see who gets the initiative. And we've got the British have got 3 against a French 9. So the French have taken the initiative, as I thought they probably would. And then we go on to the turn itself. So our first charge of the game is the Hussars. British Hussars are going to pile down into the French here, who are unformed and very badly damaged as well at this point. So they're worn. What they're going to try to do, because an unformed unit, if it was formed as a column, it would get a re-roll in the charge. So what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to form square. Currently they are worn, so they actually need an 8 or above to be able to form square, because they're not doing so well, I don't think. Let's have a look. An 8. They have managed to do it. Actually, I apologise. No, they haven't done it. They actually needed a 9 or more because they are currently on Enfant Perus. They are 2 levels down because not only are they unformed, but they are also worn as well. So they don't form square. So they don't get they're not going to get a reroll for that. But they do have support from on the flank. They also have support at the rear as well. Support on the flank is going to fire at the cavalry as they come in. The cavalry has just 1 support at the rear, but at least they've got some support. That's the most important thing. Right, so we're going to fire first of all with that support on the rear. It's literally 1 casualty dice because they are in column. This might not go. They've hit the cavalry. They've given them 1 damage, or at least 1 casualty, but yeah, nothing else. So now we have to test for the actual test for the fighting here. So the French are actually rolling 3 dice and taking the lowest score, because not only are they unformed, but they also got 6+ casualties as well. The British, on the other hand, they're neither shaken nor disordered, and they're just rolling 2d6. The French do get to re-roll. They get 2 re-rolls because they've got 2 support. The British have get 1 re-roll because they've got 1 support. So let's just see what happens with that. See what we get. So the French, they take the lowest there. That's double 1. So that's not good for them, is it? The French can re-roll them. I thought they couldn't, but because they're only disordered. So far they're going to try to re-roll those 2 1s, but they have to stick with whatever the numbers come up. Can't get worse than a 1, can it? Anyway, so let's see. So 5 and 1. That still gives them 6. Now the British, they get 1 re-roll. So are they going to take it? They're currently on 6 against 6. That's a bit tricky. If they stick with that, that would just be a close to combat. if they get a 4, 5 or a 6, then they're going to close to combat with Elan, which is obviously much better. Shall we go for it? Yeah, they are cavalry after all. Let's see what they get. Oh, they got a 4, so they've just snipped it. So that's 7 against 6. So that's a difference of 1 in favour of the cavalry. So that is 1 to 5. The attacker closes to combat with Elan. The defender is unformed. They already are. It says where cavalry is fighting a square, cavalry draw and roll 1 casualty dice of casualties. Square stands and rolls 1 casualty because they didn't form. So basically, we form those, move those into combat, and then they will fight combat at the end of the turn. Okay, we're going on to movement, tactical movement. In the movement phase, nothing has really happened. The French are kind of waiting to get some good ADC so they can do some assaults over here. So these kind of guys are going to stop and they're going to fire some volleys up here at the guns. Meanwhile, the cavalry, I could have charged with the lancers into the flanks here, but I'm just going to hold off because I was trying to get the chasseurs across the pond, so they're now free, so that'll probably happen next turn, I would have thought. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all the firing over on this side of the table, then we're going to turn over to this, and then we'll resolve that charge and the attack over there. This shouldn't take too long on this side, I don't think, because it's just a bit of skirmishing and then a little bit of volleying as well on top of it. So let's start with the skirmishing. The French have got their initiative, so they're starting first of all. Again, skirmish fire between the 95th and the voltigeurs, so we'll start with that. So those voltigeurs have caused 3 hits there, so that has caused 1 damage on the 95th, so that takes 1 of their bases off, because we're already on 2, so that's them off 1. So now that means the 95th are going to be down to 3. They're going to be rolling 5 dice because they're 95th and they're skirmishers. So they get, same again, 4's up. And they can't hit a barn door, can they, at all? No, they've hit nothing there. They've 1 hit, but that doesn't count, unfortunately, for them. So I'm going to go straight over then on to the artillery over here, and we've got this artillery again is going to fire at that unit up on the hill there. This is just a normal firing volley for the horse artillery, and then we're going to fire with that British artillery firing down, which is currently low on ammunition, unfortunately for them. So let's roll this, and we're getting it's a standard battery fire, and that's a cut 3, so they've taken another casualty. That's another FC, another casualty for them. They just keep shooting themselves. Right, they've been totally useless. Right, so what we'll do then, we'll swap over to the British over here. These are currently low on ammunition. They only have 1 modifier, inferior fire modifier, because they are currently low on ammunition, and that's it. And they're just going to fire straight ahead. So they're firing with 2d6, but it's on the inferior fire battery because of that low on ammunition. So let's see, we've got a 7 for them. That just causes 1 damage on that French column at the front there. Now we're going to go on to volley fire. The only volley fire that we're going to do is this French unit down here is actually going to fire 1 casualty dice up here. If they get a 1, they get fire discipline, and they also take a casualty, a fatigue casualty themselves. But they're going to try and do some damage to that unit up there. 4 with artillery unit 2, no effect. So that pretty much ends the firing area on that side of the table. Okay, over here we've got French skirmishers firing at the Brunswicks. Then we're going to have Brunswicks and the 95th firing back. The 95th will just fire into the ones in front of them. Only 3 of them are going to be able to do. The other one is way out. And unfortunately, very sillily of me, I put that artillery assault on the artillery battery that is now covered in cavalry. So they wasted their time because they can't fire. But nobody else can fire apart from that. So we'll just work our way through that, and then we'll go on to that combat, which is probably the most important part of this sector. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the French skirmishers left. So that's them rolling 6 dice against the Brunswicks. Let's have a look at that. Oh, that's a good roll. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits. So that only converts into 2, but that makes the Brunswicks now worn. So they are now worn, so they are going to be taking 1 dice off their skirmish dice, so they are now down to 4 skirmish dice rather than the 5 that they previously were on. So we'll roll that, and they've got two fives converts into one hit. So again, slowly grinding away, but they are at least doing their bits. Then we've got, we could fire with the columns here, but again it's a bit tricky because you've that 1 in 6 chance of them getting fire discipline and a casualty. So I'm not going to, so I'm going to just go on to move on to those 95th. They've got 3 bases. They are 95th, so they get a +1 and they get a +1 for being skirmishers. So let's just roll those dice and see what happens. They have hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits. They didn't have skirmishing tasking in, so they don't get an extra for that. So that's 2 hits on those guys. It takes them up to 3. Wearing them away. These really need to get into combat at this point, I think, but just haven't had the ADCs to do it at this point. So we've got the all-important showdown here between the hussars and the line infantry, light infantry actually over here. So they both start with 5 combat dice because this is just what they start with, and then what we do is we add dice to this depending on the different situation. So we're going to go through the combat modifiers because they're not really done charges that often. So first of all, glory, neither of them have this. A post of honor, no. We do have elan for the British, so they get an extra dice, so that takes them straight up to 6. Then we have lancers with elan, no. These are standard modifiers. Elite or veteran versus lower grade, no, they're both the same. Formed higher grade versus recruits, no. Recruits in line, no. Unformed, yes, that's the French, they're unformed, so they remove 1 dice. The unit has 6+ casualties, yes, the French do. They've got 8, so they take another dice off. Then we go on to the infantry modifiers. Elite, no. Large, no. They're not attacking a village. They're not attacking a strong point. They're not attacking a redoubt. They are not attacking up a steep slope. A steep slope. Infantry in line versus cavalry, no. Small unit in garrison combat, no. So the cavalry modifiers. Elite, no. Heavy cavalry, no they're not, these are hussars. Heavy cavalry versus campaign cavalry or foot, no, they're neither of those. Lancers v foot, no. Large regiment in line if formed, no. Large regiment in column, second round only. No, they're not large regiments. Cavalry v square, no. Small cavalry unit, no, it's none of those. So we've ended up with 6 dice for the British cavalry, 3 dice for the French. What we do is we roll these casualty dice, 4 5s and 6s are hits, and it inflicts 1 casualty, and then we compare the number of hits achieved by both sides, and that gives us the margin of victory. So the British are looking to roll as many as possible, obviously, and the French are going to try to stop them. So let's just see. Ouch. Right, the French have caused 1 damage. They've got a 5, a 2 and a 1. The Brits have caused 1, 2, 3, 4 damage, and yes, they failed 2. They didn't get a double 6 or anything, so they've taken 1 hit. Let's just put these on while I remember them. The French have taken another. That's taken them up to 12 actually. I think that I was going to disperse them anyway, but they have won it by 3 up. They won 3. So we look at cavalry versus infantry or artillery. They've won by 2+. The winning cavalry take the ground or withdraw. Losing cavalry will retreat. The winning infantry stand. The losing infantry disperse. They were already on 12, so the cavalry have absolutely battered them and destroyed them. So that's the French has been taken out. The cavalry basically hold that ground there, so that's destroyed 1 unit. I think that might cause a faltering result in the battalion. It's in the brigade. So let's just get rid of all this. So yes, the brigade actually becomes faltering. So what happens is, because this happened in combat, because they've lost that unit, because of this, they immediately in the next turn, which is the next phase, is going to be the command phase, they're going to have to roll a faltering test to see if they've got an ADC spare to put in there. So good work by the hussars there. Alright, as we're about to go into turn 6, halfway point, let's just have a quick look at the action. So far our guard have moved forward. They're at about the centre of the table here. They're just going to come up and try to get onto that crossroads at some point. Meanwhile, this brigade here It's currently faltering because of that cavalry assault, so that the hussars just piled in there. I don't think they're going to last too long, to be perfectly honest, because there are some guard cavalry kicking about back here, so there might be some counter charging and charging going on in the next turn, depending on the initiatives. Meanwhile, the British line is still pretty much intact all across that line there, which is quite nice for them, I guess. They're sitting pretty, but we do have this brigade here just sitting here waiting to go in. I'm looking for those ADCs at this point so they can actually charge in. We could do some charges individually, but yeah, I don't know. Problem is, if you don't have support, it can end in tears. Meanwhile, we do have the French cavalry over there, the light cavalry, roaming about, roaming through the landscape, and they may probably do some charging themselves against that flank of that British line and try and pincer them at least. Meanwhile, we still haven't actually released any of the British reserves, so we've still got a heavy cavalry and a full brigade of infantry sitting there. Meanwhile, the French have not put out their heavy cavalry either, so they're still sitting there. Now it's a bit of a waiting game as to who releases the reserves first at this point, I think. But let's with that in mind, let's get back to the action. Okay, so rolling up for our ADCs first of all. Let's give it a go. What have we got here? We've got, for the British, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and a double 6, so that actually gives them an extra ADC as well on top of the ones that they get. So they've got 4, so 1, 2, 3 and 4, plus they get, because of that double 6, they get an extra one. That's very nice for them. The French, on the other hand, they have 3 ADCs, so they don't get as many this time round, so there's their 3. Right, so what I'll do is I'll once again distribute these across the forces and see where we're at with them. Well, that took quite a bit of thinking. Right, but I've distributed the orders. So basically I've given a brigade order to the 2 British infantry units at the moment. I have given an infantry assault an order to the French infantry unit down here. They're going to try to charge up that hill. I have also given out the Falter ADC over there. That was absorbed by the French. And I've also given a CNC command, which is post of honour for the hussars over here, which means basically they're going to pass their brigade roll automatically. I've also I couldn't give them anything else, so basically I put skirmishers on this brigade so they can at least shoot down here and just do a bit more damage if that's the case. So we're now going to have to see who is active and who isn't. So I'll start with the French, and I'll start with the cavalry over on the right hand side. So 1 or 2 and they are hesitant. Let's have a look. 4, they're fine. The infantry one, this is important because they might lose their ADCs. If not, they are hesitant, and I didn't have that extra ADC to put in there to give them a brigade re-roll, so they have lost their brigade re-rolls and that infantry assault as well. Let's have a look at the guard. See again, 1, they are hesitant as well, so it's not going well so far. And then finally we've got the last one over here. This is Falter, so we have to do a Falter test. What I'm going to do though, I'm going to go through the British first of all, then we'll do the Falter test last. So these the horsemen automatically pass their test anyway. So 1st brigade on the left hand side, on the infantry brigade up there on the hill, on my right hand side, our right hand side. 5, they pass, they're fine. And the other one over here, 4, they've passed as well. So both of those passed. They don't need their brigade re-rolls, and as I say, these have automatically passed their re-roll anyway. They can also re-roll one of their d6s from the final 2d6 of their initiative score as well. So the French are going to be when it comes to the initiative, the French are rolling 4, the British are currently rolling 2, but they will also get a re-roll. Now what we're going to do here is we are going to roll for the faltering brigade here. So it's a literal just a roll, 4 up and they passed it. 1, 2 or 3 is a bad issue. So here we go. It's a 3, that means they are wavering. Right, dispersals, any unit within 2 casualties of its dispersal point is gone. Nope. Retreaters, nobody's retreating. Retreat plus 4d6 4 casualty dice casualties. All other units either go unformed and take 2 casualty dice casualties, or retreat and take 4 casualty dice casualties. Skirmish line on 2 bases is recalled. Now the skirmish line is still okay. No movement or reforming permitted this turn. Firing permitted, but as the hesitant rules, and the brigade remains faltering. So they've got to decide: are they all going to go unformed, or are they all going to retreat? I'm gonna go unformed with them, I think. So they're all going to take some casualties. Don't know if this is a good or a bad idea. Let's see: unformed, 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 and unformed. So then now we just have to roll through for their casualties on here, and it's 2 casualty dice on each one. So we'll start with top right. 4's up is a casualty. Yes, they've taken a casualty, so that takes them to 2. So they're obviously not very happy about that. And next one next to them on the left hand side here, these ones here, they've taken another casualty, so that takes them up to 4. Maybe it's now's your time. And then we've got this one down here. Let's have a look at them. They have taken a casualty as well. Thankfully then that's just their first one though, so they've just taken 1. And then the last one down here is they've taken a casualty as well. So we'll put that on there, and then we will roll for initiative. And I don't think the French are going to get it somehow. So the British are on 2, the French are on 4, taking their lowest, and the British can actually re-roll one of theirs as well because of that C&C order, the post of honour. So let's see what we got. Well, I don't think they're going to bother. They've got 11 for the British, the French are on 3. So yeah, British take the initiative for turn 6. Let's see what they're going to do. Can you guess? Okay, so we've got the Hussars. They are charging again against this unit here, which is unformed. They're going to swarm around the other French there, just because the bases are quite big, so I'm just making it there. So now the French are going to try, if they can, to form square on this one. They need to pass that discipline test, but because they are unformed, that makes them worse, but they're not worn at least. So they are basically passing it on an 8 or above, because they're classed as a reservist at this point. So they need an 8 or above just to pass to form square. That's a 6. They failed it, so no, they stay in column, but it means that they can't fire as they come in. They have 1 support over here, but that can't fire, I'm going to say, but it's going to give them a re-roll at least in their dice rolls for the next part of this. So we've got a test for the actual charge. So the British have got themselves 2 dice. The lead unit, I forgot actually, should have recovered 1 casualty, so they're back down to 1, so that's good for them. So the French are rolling 3 dice because they are unformed. They both are going to get a re-roll if they need it, so let's just see what happens. So the British have got a 9, the French have got a 7, so they're going to re-roll that 3, and then this result will stick. That's a 2, so that is a difference for the winner, which is the British cavalry, of 3. So that is cavalry versus infantry, 3 to 5, combat with Elan. The defender is unformed, they already are. If versus square, the cavalry draw, no they don't. The cavalry square stands. So basically they go into combat with Elan against those French. So I'll just move them up there just to show that. Right, that probably won't turn out too well for the French, I don't think. Meanwhile, on the right flank, the French Lancers are declaring a charge as well against the Highlanders up on the hill. No, they're not Highlanders, I think that's just the Essex. They've got 1 support from their chasseurs, but the British have got support from the Dutch and also from the Highlanders as well. So let's have a look at this now. So the British can either fire a volley or they can attempt to form square. Now it'd be silly not to form square, especially against Lancers, so that's what they're going to try to do. These are not unformed, so these are line, so basically what they need is a 7 up to pass this. So let's see, I'll roll those in. Here they are. That's exactly what they needed. That's double 6, so yes, they get to form square, and their support units can't actually fire because they're in front of them, and there's too many skirmishers on the other side, so they will just supply re-rolls for that, for the charge roll. Right, this may not be so good for the French here. So the lead unit is neither shaken nor disordered, so he's rolling 2d6, and neither is the British, so they're also. Now let's see if we get a re-roll. Elites get a re-roll. Heavy cavalry versus campaign cavalry. Formed cavalry versus infantry in line, no. Formed infantry column versus battle campaign cavalry, no. No, they don't get any anything there, so this might be a bit difficult for the French. Actually, they should have softened these guys up, but just trying to force them into a square, so at least they can't really support any other units elsewhere that are attacking. But it is what it is. Let's see what happens. So they're both rolling their dice. Let's just see. So the British have scored a 7, the French have scored a 5, so that's actually a -2 to the French, and that is cavalry versus infantry. All units withdraw with an extra casualty dice of casualties. With the defenders, they stand and they get 1 casualty dice as well. So let's roll those casualty dice first of all. So red and blue, obviously. Let's see. The British take a casualty, the French don't, but they do withdraw. Right, the British are not moving, the French can't move, so we're going to go straight on to the skirmish first of all. So I'm going to start on this side of the table. So we've got the Brunswicks over here. They're firing with 6, they've got 6 casualties, so they would normally have 5 dice, but that's dropped down to 4 because of those casualties. They are worn now. Firing once again at those skirmishers. As hitting on 4s up, that's 2 hits. They don't have a skirmish tasking, the 95th do, so that might be interesting in a minute. So that has caused just 1 hit, so they were already on 2, so I'll take off another base of those French skirmishers. So again, picking away at them. And then we've got the 95th, so they're firing with 3 dice, again into these 2 units in front of them. They're 95th and they're formed, and they've also got that skirmisher tasking as well, which means they get an extra 2 dice for their skirmish fire, and any double 6s cause discipline test. So they're going to spread them across the 2 units, seeing what they get. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 hits, no double 6s, so that takes them up to 5. They are almost worn at this point, so good firing there from the 95th. Takes them up to 3, so they're still okay. I mean, you know, is it now your time, Maitland? Anyway, so that's the firing over there. Sorry, the French are going to return fire at the Brunswicks, so they are firing with 1, 2, 3, 4 dice this time. 5 dice in total because they've got 4 bases now, and 5 fire. That is 2 hits on them, so that takes the Brunswicks actually up to 8 on their hits, so they're getting quite close to their dispersal points as well, which is not good, I guess. Slowly whittling them down, isn't it? The French seem to be doing a lot better with a skirmish over there than the Brunswicks do. Right, what I'm going to do again whilst I'm here, because there's only 1 bit of firing from artillery, and that's this battery up here, are just going to be firing at this unformed unit down here. I'm just going to fire it now, get it out of the way before I move the cameras and things, so we'll do that. Don't think there's going to be any volley fire. The French will. I'll do the volley fire as well over here before we move on to the next bit. So standard battery fire. This is actually canister as well, so we're rolling 2d6, seeing what we get. That's an 8. That is 1 hit plus a discipline test if they are in canister, which they are, so that takes them up to 4. French have got to now do a discipline test. They are also unformed, so that makes them harder to discipline, shall we say. So we just roll the dice. They are now reservists for this particular test. They've got a 9, which is a pass, so they are okay. And then I'm going to finally fire with the French. They are actually going to fire back at those up at the skirmishers in front of them, just because why not? Right, so they're only using 1 dice each, so it's a casualty dice for each one. So I'll do the first one on the left, a 1. That is a casualty for them, so that actually takes them to warned and a loss of fire discipline as well. So I'll just mark that up in a second. And then also for the other guys, this is why I didn't really want to do it. The other ones, 5, they have hit, so they have caused 1 hit on those 95th. Okie doke, over here on this side of the table we've got the French skirmishers and the British skirmishers firing at one another. We've also got the British artillery over here firing inferior, but they are going to be firing down at that French unit. We've also got the French horse artillery to see if they can actually hit anything this time, but they are firing at somebody in square, so I think they get a +1 for that casualty dice. So anyway, we'll start with our British 95th. They've got 3 men, 3 bases, so that actually gives them 6 dice in total. So let's just see what they get for that. And 1 hit, so that does nothing. French fire back. They're firing back with 5 dice. So let's see what they get. They've got 4 hits, which is what was needed on the other side, because they've got a couple of double 6s there as well. And then we've got our artillery fire, so the British over here, low on ammunition. They're firing an inferior shot at the French in front of them, but it is canister at least. So that's a 5 on inferior, nothing. I don't get anything for it. So then we're just going to jump over to the French artillery over there, the horse artillery, and they are firing just a normal round, but they're firing at those infantry in square, so they get an extra casualty dice for that. So let's just see what we get. So 7, nothing for the casualty dice. 7 on their standard battery fire is 1 casualty and a DT if it was canister. It isn't, so they've actually scored a casualty. Well done, lads. First time, I think, this game. Good work. Okay, we are now in to this combat, and this was a post of honor combat, so this might be pretty good. So they're both starting with 5 dice each, by combat dice each. So let's have a look. Standard modifiers. They have glory, which is also the post of honor, so the British get 2 extra dice for that. They don't have Elan. Did they come in with Elan? Yes, they did come in with Elan, didn't they? So they get an extra combat dice for that. So that gives them another one. Wow, this is going to build up. Lancers with Elan? No. Elite and veteran versus low grade? No. Formed higher grade versus recruits? Recruits in line? No. They are unformed, so they take out 1. That's the French, that is. 6+ casualties? No, the French have only got 1 casualty there, fortunately for them. They are not elite infantry. They're not large. They're not attacking a village, strong point or redoubt. They're not attacking up a steep hill. They're being attacked down. They're not in line versus cavalry, and it's not a small unit in the garrison combat. Meanwhile, the cavalry modifiers, they're not elite. They're not heavy. They're not versus campaign or foot cavalry. They're not a large regiment. They're not lancers versus foot, and they're not cavalry versus square, and they're not a small cavalry unit either. So this is our dice rolls. So we've got 4 for the French and 8 for the Brits, and they're looking for 4s up on these. So let's see what that is. Right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits from the British and 2 hits from the French, so that takes the British up to 3 on their lead, but 5 hits on the French takes them up to 6. So they are now worn anyway. That is also a 2+ win from cavalry versus infantry. Winning cavalry take the ground or withdraw. The losing infantry disperse. Yes, that's it. So basically they have dispersed yet another unit in that brigade. That's 2 of them down now. Right, so we're jumping straight back in at the start of turn 7. So let's have a look, see what ADCs we get. The French are really wanting to get the initiative this turn, I think. That's definitely what they're after. Okay, we got 6, 6 and a 4 for the French. So that actually gives them an extra ADC, I believe. Oh, and a 6, a 6, a 4 and a 3 for the British. So the British get 4 ADCs, but they've got a double 6, so they get an extra one, so they get 5. French, on the other hand, have got 3 ADCs, but they've also got a double 6, so they get an extra one as well. So 4 against 5. So that's quite a lot that they can use those things for, I think, and they're going to have a bit of fun with those. Right. What we'll do now is I'll distribute those, and then we shall do the initiative rolls. Okay, I've gone through and I've put all my ADCs down, so let's just have a quick look at them. First of all, the French have basically spent everything that they've got, apart from the one that they have to put over here on the faltering brigade. So the ADC over here is going to try to get that brigade re-roll. They have another, they basically put down a brigade re-roll over here, but also infantry assault as well. Learning from last time when they failed their role, so they're going to try to attack up the hill into the Scots here. That's the plan, at least with one of these lead units. So there's going to be a bit of an argy-bargy over there. That's the plan of it anyway. Meanwhile, over here, the British, they've just put a brigade re-roll over here. They've also put a caisson down here for the guns as well. So if they can get a brigade re-roll, at least the guns will be no longer low on ammo at the end of the turn. They won't be able to do anything else in the turn, but at least it'll get them back fighting again. Fingers crossed. Meanwhile, over here, we put a brigade re-roll on the Hussars. The plan is to either charge into the Guard Cavalry. It might end up messy. The Guard Cavalry might want to charge into them as well. Depends who gets the initiative. But I think there's going to be a bit of a cavalry clash in this centre here. We've also got this, these ones up here, these regiments up here. They can only do one charge per brigade. Now, potentially I was thinking, well, I could charge these down into here and then just have these hanging about, but there's too much of a threat of cavalry here, so they're going to try to get in there. So what I've done instead is I've put a brigade re-roll on the British brigade here on the top of the hill, and also an infantry assault, and they are going to try to pile down into this faltering brigade here of the French, because I think that is a pretty good target for them to attack, as they are currently, you know, they've already lost 2 of their battalions, so, you know, any more of those we can smash them up, that's even better, I think. And it's a little bit like, now is your time, Maitland. They still have got 2 full brigades of supports to bring on, so I don't mind them so much losing that position on the hill yet. They can bring in reserves next turn perhaps. Obviously depends on what's happening over here on this side. Right, so we'll get through the command rolls for everybody and see what happens. So I'm going to start over here with the French cavalry, and again, 1 or 2 they don't get to do anything. 4, they're fine. These ones here who have got the brigade re-roll, so they can re-roll. 4, they're fine anyway, so I'll take that brigade re-roll off to remind me that they've been done. Then we'll do the Guard. Now, I'd forgotten in previous turns that the Guard, actually, if they have 0 or 1 tasking on their brigade, they can actually roll 2d6 and choose the highest score, because he's a bold brigadier. I'd forgotten to do this in the previous ones. Let's just say they lost both of their they rolled double 1 for both of those turns. So we roll these and we choose the highest. They've got a 3 and a 5, so it doesn't matter, so they are okay to crack on. Now the last one is the Faltering Brigade. So these guys are line, so we have to roll the d6 to see what happens with these, to see if they continue or if they are able to pull themselves back together. They are line, so the worst, if they pass, if they get 4 up, then they've passed. If they get a 1, 2 or a 3, something bad will happen, either wavering or savquipou, if that's how you pronounce it in French, which I'm sure you don't. Let's have a look. They've got a 2. They are wavering still. So it says any unit within 2 casualties of dispersal points disperses. Otherwise, nobody is retreating. All other units either go unformed and add 2 dice casualties, or they retreat and get 4 dice casualties. The skirmish line is still on 4 skirmishes, so that is not recalled. It says no movement or reforming permitted this turn. Firing permitted, but has hesitant rules, and then the brigade remains faltering. So this is the second time they're faltering. So we've got to make a choice now then on these individual units as to what to do with them, whether they retreat or whether they remain where they are. Now, if they retreat, they're going to take a hell of a lot more casualties, but they will retreat back behind the guards. So they're going to end up back here somewhere, I would have thought, and they're going to be unformed. They are, as I say, they're right in the front of this British attack if they don't do anything. So, well, I believe actually one of them they've lost fire discipline over here anyway, so they can't actually do anything, I don't think. All they can do is they can do the basic one, because they can't actually move because they've got fire discipline and they haven't sorted that out. So they're just going to have to stand, be unformed, and take 2 casualties anyway, I think. So let's have a look at that. They've taken 1 casualty. They're already on 6, so that takes them up to 7. And the other 2, I'm gonna have to retreat them. because they are in such a bad position. I think they're going to lose that battalion that has still got fire discipline, because we've got an infantry attack that's going to come down the hill. They're not going to be able to move or do anything about it anyway. So I think rather than lose more battalions at this point, I think it's probably better just to actually pull that battalion back and let the guard get in, and maybe release the heavy cavalry as well, if not this turn, at least next turn, to try to get up on that hill if the British shift off it. Obviously I know what's happening because I'm thinking about it. Right, so anyway, let's not get into those areas. Right, first up we're going to try these guys. So these get 4 casualty dice. So they've taken 1, 2, 3 casualties on top of the 4 they already have. So that send them up to 7, so they're now worn as well. But they will then fall back 30 centimeters, and they will draw all the way back down to here. So these are retreating and unformed. So we'll just bring up all this lot back. We'll bring back their brigadier with them. So as I say, they come back until they contact a friendly unit, and then they stop behind that friendly unit. Because there's no space there behind the cavalry, I'm just going to push them back behind the units here. Then the other ones, thankfully they've only taken 1 casualty, so that's only put 2 on them. They could reform and then go back in, or lend support to the guard. That's the kind of the plan with these ones. So we'll pull these back. I'm just going to put the falter sign here, take off that ADC because he's done. As I say, the other ones are, unfortunately for them, still stuck out there firing away like Billy-O. So we got to go back now and do the British rolls for their units. So we're going to start with the one over here, their left flank. So that's a 6, they passed it, they don't need that re-roll. We've got the cavalry, they're a bit further forward, so I'll re-roll them. They've got a re-roll. A 6, yes, they've got it. And finally, the last British infantry battalion, that's a 2, but I did give them a brigade re-roll, so we roll that again. 6, they passed it. So everybody has passed it, and happy days, I think. So I think I may have forgotten to put it in previously, but a faltering brigade also adds an extra dice to that initiative roll. I don't think it made much difference anyway, as do any hesitant brigades as well. So the British have no hesitant brigades, the French have no hesitant brigades, but they do have a faltering one, so that gets that extra dice, and they choose their lowest dice. I also as well, I pulled back the skirmishers for the faltering brigade and just did a roll off camera. They took 1 casualty as they were falling back as well. So let's see who gets the initiative. Right, the British have got 7, the French there have got 5, 3 and a 2. So the British, of course, are going to take the initiative. Right, it's literally all kicking off. So we've got numerous charges this turn. We've got the Hussars are charging in against the French. Now, they may counter-charge. Well, let's see what happens. It's all part of the dice rolling. We've also then got the British infantry here. They are piling down the hill into this unformed French brigade over here, sorry, not brigade, battalion over here, who are currently firing as fast as they can, so they'll probably do a fire reaction. We also have a French infantry assault going in against the British Highlanders up there on that hill as well. The French cavalry, I did think about sending them in again, but I think that would just be a fool's errand at this point. They're just going to smash up against those squares, so there's not much point. We may as well wait to see what happens over here, then maybe do another charge next turn. So we've got British Cav against Guard Cav, we've got British infantry against French infantry, and then French infantry against British infantry. So we'll go through each one of these and see what happens. Starting with the British, because they're the phasing player, so I'm going to start with their infantry one over here. Well, first things first, those French are going to fire as the Brits come in. They are firing a weak volley, not only because they're unformed, also they've got over 6 casualties, plus they're a column that are firing, so we're just rolling one casualty dice, and that's it. So they have caused a single casualty on the British as they came in, but it's not enough to stop them or to really affect the impact of the charge itself. I think they need over 3 casualties for that. So just stick that somewhere where it doesn't roll over. So now, because the British are coming in, they are disciplined. they also have, in the form of the light infantry behind them, directly behind them there, they do have a support. So they do, if they want to, they do have a re-roll. It can't fire because you can't fire through. I'm not going to count these guys because these are skirmishers, so they can't really count as re-rolls. So they're rolling 2 dice. This is for the charge outcomes. The French, on the other hand, not only are they have lead casualties of a 6+, they're on 7 at the moment. They also have they are unformed as well. So that is 2 shaken situations. Each one of those would mean they were shaken. So this means they are now disordered, and they cannot re-roll any scores of 1. Not that they've got any support to do it anyway, so they can't. They haven't really got a cat's chance in hell, I don't think, here. So let's just see what we get. And as I say, the British do get 1 re-roll at least because of that support. So they should go the way of the Brits. Right, so the British have got a 6 and a 1, so they're obviously going to re-roll one of those. The French, they take the lowest, which is 5. So the British could keep that 1, but we're not going to, of course we're not. Let's roll, see what we get higher. That's a 3, so that gives them a 9. 9 against 5 is a difference of 4. Infantry versus infantry. The infantry take the ground, the defender will retreat with 4 casualty dice, and that's literally it. So they basically push them back, give them another 4 casualties on those things. So they basically just push them out. So they didn't even close to combat in this case. This is what sometimes happens with charges. It's about the morale breaking before the charge even goes in. So these push them back, and let's see how many casualties they take. As part of that, that's 2 more casualties. That puts them now up to 9. They're not really going to be recovering. 3 more casualties would force them, and they are going to then fall all the way back. They are going to keep getting pushed right back to the back of the thing, but at least back with the rest of their brigade. So I'll just move those out of the way now. So the British moved up just ever so slightly. They just took the ground. They moved forward 5 inches, bringing their supports with them. Creates us a bit of space at the back there where the other cavalry are, so we can bring in some reserves at some point in the future. So that was just to readdress the lines. Right, we're now onto this cavalry charge here. So both are rolling 2d6, but the French are elite, so they get an automatic re-roll if they want it. They've also got support of another cavalry unit, so that's another re-roll. The British, on the other hand, have got a 1 re-roll because of their attack in there as well. Both of these are battle cavalry, so there's no difference in the grading. So we basically just roll the dice and we see what re-rolls we can get out of it. French are getting 2, British are getting 1. So let's have a look. The British have got an 11. I don't think they're going to re-roll that. The French, on the other hand, have got a 10. Right, well, they've already lost this, so is it worthwhile losing it? Let's just see what these results are. It would, if they didn't do it, it would just be a normal close to combat. Yeah, if they get any less, the French, then the winner, the British, will they will then close to combat with Elan. Is it worthwhile trying to go for those re-rolls or not? I don't think it is. I think we'll just close to combat on this one, just because it makes a little bit more sense from a point of view of the French on their part. Okay, over here we got this French column going in against the Brits up on the hill. So the British are actually going to stand and shoot at them. So they're basically doing a superior volley, or a standard volley should I say, but because they are British and drilled and in line, they get an extra casualty dice, plus they also are firing at a column that is charging at them less than 5 centimeters, i.e. the charge. So they get another casualty dice as well on top of that. So let's see what we get, and if the British volleys can do some damage. 11, I think that's alright, but no casualties caused from the actual casualty dice themselves. But we've got a 10 plus, that is 4 hits, and a discipline test on the French. So that means that the French are going to get a negative impact because they are now shaken, as they not shaken, but as they get a poor result for the attack because they've got over 3 casualties. I'll just put that in there. This is for the charge, so to say. Okay, so then they do a discipline test as well, and these are line. So let's see what happens. They may become unformed if this goes badly for them. Let's have a look. A 3. Oh dear, that might be even worse. Line is for a 3. They become unformed. I think they still go into the fight though, but yeah, it's still not good. I'm running out of unformed markers. Right, so that's the French. They've got that in there. So now we actually go on to the roll itself for the charge. Right, the British are disciplined. They will get 1 re-roll because of that support. I think the artillery supports them. I can't remember if artillery also supports them. Yeah, supporting artillery can only fire, but they were currently getting restocked by their caissons, so they can't do anything at the moment. They can't fire this turn because they were trying to get rid of that low on ammunition, but it doesn't matter. The British volley caused enough damage anyway. So they are rolling the 2d6. They get 1 support re-roll because of the rear support. The French, on the other hand, lead casualties are 6+, no, but they did suffer 3 or more casualties in the charge, yes, and the lead unit is also unformed as well. So this actually becomes disordered. So both of those apply, and that means that they are now rolling 4 dice. But they do get 2 re-rolls on those. So let's see what we get. Roll everything together. So the British have scored a 5 and a 1. They are then going to obviously re-roll that 1 as their support. So they've actually got 8. The French currently have a 7 in total. So they do actually get 2 re-rolls if they want, because of that support, the infantry support. So they need to beat 8. So let's just see what happens. We'll re-roll the 2. That's a 9. They've now gained a 9. So yes, so they are actually beating them. Chances are, if I re-rolled again, I don't think they would get higher than that. You know, they've got a 50% chance of getting higher than it. So I'm going to stick with that. So that is, they basically infantry v infantry, combat with elan, and the defender is unformed. Just going to quickly show you what I've done movement wise. Not a huge amount has happened. The guard have wheeled and they're starting to come around this cavalry skirmish that's happening here in the centre. They're going to try and fill this gap here that's just been left by this faltering brigade. The Brunswicks have reformed up here on the hill. They've gone into column. You get a free move basically if you move behind a friendly unit, which is what they've done. I've unlimbered the guns over here, so there's not much else they can do at this point. Move forward some more guns for the French over here, but that's pretty much it for the movement. So what we're going to do then is quickly go on to the skirmishing, and then the artillery, and then finally the shooting and the combat. Okay, starting over here, the British, they get the first go. So we're going to start with those 95th. Again, there's only 3 of them, so that really gives them 5 dice, and they're only firing down on these skirmishers here in front of them. See, they are hitting on 4s up, so that's 2 hits. That causes 1 casualty on those French skirmishers, and because of the fighting that's going on in front of them, I'm only letting 2 skirmish bases fire from the French. They're firing at the 95th again, so they've caused 1 hit. That doesn't translate into any hits at all for them, unfortunately. Meanwhile, we've got the French artillery, so I'm just going to do all the firing on this side of the table, then swap over to the other. The British artillery can't fire because it's been reloaded at the moment by the caisson, so we're just going to use the French horse artillery, go straight onto those, firing at that square. So basically it's a 1 dice with a casualty dice as well. Sorry, it's a 2 dice roll with a casualty dice as well. So we've got a 5 on the standard battery fire. That is one hit and no discipline test though, and also another hit from firing into a square. So that's 2 casualties on those British. There's no skirmish fire on this side of the table, but so we'll go straight onto the artillery. The only artillery that's firing is the British artillery on the hill. They're firing down at the French here on the in the valley itself, but it's inferior fire because they're at long range. It's the only target that they've got. Well, they could fire at the French infantry over there. Let's just check. Actually, it might be better that they do that. I think. Yeah, they're within. They're in better range, so I'm going to fire at them instead of the French guns, because the French guns can't return fire anyway this turn because they were setting up. So we're just going to fire with normal standard battery fire. They get a casualty dice because they're firing at someone in column, but they rolled a 4. A casualty dice, so they have caused a casualty, but they've also caused a casualty on themselves as well, a fatigue casualty. So didn't go as well as they thought it would have done. Okay, we've got our first combat, which is here, which is the cavalry combat. This may go into a second round. It can do with the cavalry, or unless you're attacking a building. So let's start with it. They both start with 5 dice each. Now then, have the British got glory? No, they don't. They haven't got Elan either. No. It's not Lancers with Elan. No. It's not Elites. It is actually Elite versus Veteran, or low, Elite and Veteran versus lower grade. That's for the French. So they get an extra dice for that. They're not recruits in line. Neither of them are unformed. And neither have 6+ casualties. So we go on to the cavalry modifiers. Right, elite cavalry, they get a +1. So that's another one for them. Nasty. They're not heavy cavalry. They're not heavy cavalry versus campaign foot. They're not a large regiment in line, not a large regiment in column. Actually, yes, they are a large regiment because they are 4 bases for the French cavalry. So they do get an extra dice for that. I forgot those French cavalry bases are large. They're not lancers versus foot, not cavalry versus square, and it's not a small cavalry unit. So we roll our dice, see how many hits we take, and then that's it. I don't think this is going to go well for the British. I think this is probably going to be their last hurrah, if anything. Let's just see what happens. You never know with the fate of the dice. Right, the British have caused 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. Meanwhile, the French have only caused 1 hit. What's that about? French cavalry, French elite cavalry are obviously not as good as I thought. Right, so that's caused 1 hit on the British. So let's see. So they've gone up to 4 casualties now, and 5 casualties on the French. So with that in mind, let's have a look at the combat results. This is a 2+ for win for the British. God, these guys, they're amazing. These are definitely man of the match. So it's the first and the second round. The winner takes the ground or withdraws, and the losers retreat. So the French are actually thrown all the way back, miles back. They take 4 more casualties, 4 more dice of casualties. I don't think they're unformed though, but they do just they retreat. Oh no, hang on. So what happens is, I forgot to do this in the previous infantry battles, but if you fall back 10 centimeters, and any formed infantry that or any formed unit that you fall back through will become unformed. So they are now unforming the grenadiers cheval, and then they will fall back and retreat until they can get behind and then a friendly unit, which are all the way back here. So these guys are pushed all the way back. That did not go the way I expected it to. They have won, so they can then take the ground. So these are all the way back here now with their casualty marker of 5. They also take another 4D hits, 4D6 hits, casualty hits. So let's roll for those. 4's up. And that is 3 more casualties. So that has turned them into 8 casualties. They are not dispersed because they're a large unit, but they are very, very upset at this point, I think, with 8 casualties out of their, I think it's probably about 15 they can take as a large cavalry unit. I'll check that up. So now the winner can either take the ground or withdraw. So they can move up to another 5 centimeters if they want. That will bring them right in front of the chasseurs, the grenadiers à cheval. I'm not going to. I'm going to leave them where they are because they might get another chance to charge them, smash them up as well next turn. Bloody hell! Right, okay. Well, that was that combat. That did not go the way I expected. So let's just see how it goes on the other side of the table. Right, let's see if this time the French cavalry can do better. French infantry can do better than the cavalry. It can't be much worse, can it? To be fair. Right, both of them are starting with 5 combat dice. So we've got again. We're going to work through it. The French have got Elan, so they're getting an extra combat dice for that. They're not lancers. They're not elite and veteran versus lower grade. They're both the same grades. They're not formed higher grade versus recruits. They're both the same grade, as I said. They're not recruits in line. The British are both are unformed actually, so both lose a combat dice for that. Neither of them have got 6+ casualties. It's 2 and 4. And infantry modifiers. They're not elite infantry. Neither. Neither are large. They're not attacking a village. Not attacking a strong point or a redoubt. They are attacking up a steep slope. It is a steep slope, that it's supposed to be. It's raised high, so the French will lose 1 for that. They're not in line versus cavalry, and it's not a small unit in garrison combat, so it's literally, that's it. 4 versus 4. Looking for those hits. Let's see what we get. And the British have caused 2. Would you believe it? Once again, they've caused 1. So the British have actually have won. Infantry via infantry. The winner takes the ground, unformed, they still are, and the losers retreat. So I'm going to need another retreat marker. So what happens is, as I say, they then take another 4 casualties. So they've taken 2 already. They'll take another 4 dice worth of casualties. So let's see how many of those are caused. And that is another 2 on top of the 2. So they've taken 4, so that puts them up to 8. They will then fall back behind their line, but they will then unform the unit that's behind them as well. So they fall back, the British take a hit, and I'll just get them set up. So yeah, another miserable performance by the French there. Right, quite a lot happened in that turn. We're just about to go into turn 8. I just want to show you the state of play because things are really hotting up quite a lot. Right, so first of all, we've got this French brigade is back here with milling about with the French cavalry, the elite cavalry, who got their arses handed to them. So they are faltering again. So that's another faltering. Most of them are in retreat at this point. So and unformed as well, so they're going to need another dice roll to see if they pull themselves together. The Guard did start moving forward, the Grenadiers. There was this cavalry skirmish. We are now, the men of the match, the Hussars, are now up against those French cavalry, the Grenadiers cheval, but they are unformed. So again, it might depend on who gets the initiative next turn as to what happens. But the British line moved slightly forward to the bottom of the slope, just to free up a bit of space. We've got the Brunswicks at the back there, formed up. I'm just going to try to keep them out of the battle at the moment. They're on 8 casualties. Meanwhile, over here, another French failed attempt at a charge, went up that hill, and then came back down again. So these guys are retreated back down here, so they are unformed and retreated, and also they unformed that unit as they went through them, as they fell back as well, which I kept forgetting on earlier combats. But yeah, so it's a bit of a mess over here for the French, but this was always just going to be a blocking action anyway. The real action they wanted over on this side. So the big question for them is, do they release their heavy cavalry now and throw in their dice? They've only got 4 turns left now to really capture these crossroads, so it may be that they actually push in their reserves just to try to force something out of this what I can only describe as a dog's breakfast. Just want to quickly say that I forgot, when the French infantry battalion retreated, he shouldn't have taken those 4 extra casualties, or the 2 extra that were hit on it. I'd read the wrong line on the QRS, so I've replaced their casualties so they can crack on. So you can stop typing in the comments. Anyway, let's get on with the ADCs, see how many we get for each. Alright, this time Britain has not got as many, so they've got just 1 and 2. So let's stick those down there, so remember. And then the French, on the other hand, have got 3 and 4. They've got 2, sorry. So right, that means that they can bring on reserves, but they're not going to be as good as they'd hope for, I don't think. Well, that was pretty poor on the ADC front. So what have we done? I put a tasking of glory on the British Hussars because they've got lots of glory, and also a brigade reroll. I want them to charge in, if possible, into the French cavalry here. They are bold, so they will get a reroll on if it's a failed test, because they haven't got any taskings. The French have obviously had to put 1 onto their faltering unit over here. They put a second one over here, probably just off. Oh no, you can just see it here in the corner as a reserves. So they're going to bring on their heavy cavalry brigade. That's the plan. They're kind of throwing their dice in at this point. They were the 2 French ones. The other British ones, so the British got the 2 there. I think that's all they got, wasn't it? Yeah, so they only got 2, so they're going to do a brigade reroll plus glory tasking. The French are trying to kind of stop this unit from faltering and also bring on the reserves. Right, so what we'll do now is we'll go through the units and see who is active and who is hesitant. So I'm going to start with the British this time. So we're going to start with this brigade of infantry first of all. Actually, no, we're going to work this way. So this brigade of infantry who have just held their position. Let's have a look, see what they are. They are fine. So the other infantry brigade that pushed down the hill, so that was cocked, I'll re-roll it. A 1, so they're hesitant. The cavalry brigade, let's see what they get. They do get a re-roll. 5, they're fine, they passed it. So that's them done. Right, so the French, let's start here again with the cavalry. So they're on a 1 or a 2. 1 or a 2, they've got a 2 there, so they are hesitant. Then we've also got this infantry unit over here. Let's see what they do. A 3, they are okay, they can actually do something. The guard, let's test the guard. See what they do. 6, they are fine, they didn't need their reroll, so they can crack on. And I'm going to test for the reserves as well. I think I've forgotten to do this earlier on in the game for the British, so we roll for these to see if these are active or not. If it's a 1, they can't come on this turn, but we lose the ADC. 5, yes they can, so they can get on. So now we have to roll for the wavering or the faltering unit over here. Right, so we roll our dice, see where we're at. It's a 2. They are still wavering. So any unit within 2 casualties of its dispersal points disperses. Are there any? No, they're 3 off. They've still got 3 damage. They've got 6, so all of them are okay for that. The retreaters retreat with 4d6 casualties. So that's these. These were retreating, so these are going to retreat. They will actually fall off, so they were just going to disperse off the table anyway. So I'll get rid of them. So that's another. So they will remain faltering, unfortunately for the French. So that's another brigade, another battalion they've lost. So the other units either go unformed with 2 casualties, or they retreat with 4 casualties. Well, they're already unformed, so both of them are both unformed. I took one of those tabs off here, so I'm just going to put that on there and there and there. We'll take this guy off as well because we know we've used him. So these are actually just going to stay unformed, and they are going to go, they're going to take those 2 casualty dice. So the first ones are going to take 2 casualty dice. They've taken 1, so that's put them up to 7. They were already worn anyway. And then we've got 2 casualty dice on these ones, and these are, they've taken another 1, so that puts them up to 4 casualties, unfortunately for them. So yeah, that's not good. Right, we'll now move on to the initiative and see where we're at with that. Right, initiative. So we're rolling for initiative now. The French are rolling 3 because they've got that faltering brigade, unfortunately for them. So the British have got 9, the French have got 8. So the British will take the initiative once again, and we'll go straight into those chargers. Okay, chargers. The lunatic hussars are pushing in against the grenadiers here. This might be their last gasp, but you know, so far they've done pretty well, wiping out 2 battalions and also pushing back the chasseurs of cheval. So let's just do it, you know what I mean? It's our point, isn't it? There's no point pulling them back at this. They're too far gone. Right, and they also have the glory tasking as well, which is quite nice for them. So we are starting with the British are formed. They are neither shaken nor disordered, so they're rolling 2d6. Meanwhile, the French, unfortunately for them, they are unformed, so they're rolling 3d6 and taking the 2 lower scores. Now, the French are elite, so they do get a reroll. They are also heavy cavalry versus campaign cavalry, so they get a reroll for that. But the British get 1 reroll for their support. So the French, basically, they're on 2 rerolls, and the British are on 1 reroll. If any of them need it, let's have a look. Let's say this could probably go a bit tits up for the Brits here, I think. Right, so the French are taking the lowest 2, so that's a 5 and a 6. The British are taking theirs, so they've got 9 against the French 5 and 1, so that's 6. 9 against 6. Now this is the question, isn't it? So the British get 1 reroll, the French can have 2, so let's go for 2 rerolls. 1, they don't need another one. Right, they're going to stick with that. That's 11. The Brits, right, they are now currently a difference of 11 against 9. Let's go for it. There's a 50% chance they'll get equal or better than it. It's a 1. So they got a 6. 6 against the French 11. That's a difference of 5. Cavalry versus cavalry. It's basically a -5 for the British. they become unformed, and the defender combats with elan. So they do actually go into combat then, but the British are now unformed. But they do have glory at least, so they get an extra dice in that thing. And I think that, as I say, that's probably going to be enough to really just to end their crazy runabout. Okay, our next charge is over here. This French unit is going to pile up the hill into the British artillery, try and at least wipe them out and knock them out of the centre of the guns out of there. The British artillery is going to fire at them as they come up. They could retreat, but they're not. They're going to fire. So we're in canister range. So basically it's firing standard battery fire, but because they're firing at a column that is coming up at them, they are rolling 1 casualty dice on top of any other hits as well. So let's see what they get for this. A 3 is it's a casualty on themselves, but they have caused 1 casualty on the French, so that's not enough to stop the charge going in. So they've now become worn, and the French take 1 casualty as well. So then we go onto the actual onto the charge itself. So the lead unit, the French, are neither shaken or don't have any of the disorders. They haven't taken more than 3 casualties, and they don't have 6 or more casualties. The British, on the other hand, now have 6 or more casualties, so they're rolling 3 dice. So they don't get, neither of them get any re-rolls. There's no supports because it was an unsupported French attack here. No, the British do actually get a support from their line next to them, so they do get 1 re-roll, the British at least. But let's have a look. The French have got 11 anyway. The British, they've got a 6, so they're going to re-roll that. See what they get. 6, so that becomes a 10. It's 11 versus 10. So this is infantry versus artillery. They've won. The chargers have won by 1, so they combat with elan, and the defender is unformed. So we're at that point in the battle where everybody kind of pauses for breath just a little bit. So what I've done is kind of tried to basically, readjust some of these. So these guys who were unformed have reformed. The British over there have reformed. These guys can't reform because they are still wavering. Otherwise, over here, the Imperial Guard have moved around this cavalry skirmish. They're going to try to come up and then try to blast in their way there. Hopefully this lot will be able to pick themselves up and help at some point. Meanwhile, we have brought on the reserves. So we've got the Dragoons and all the Carabiniers. So that's 3 regiments now. So that's all the French have pushed everything onto the table. Now it is a desperate roll of the dice at this point. I think they've got 4 turns still, and they've hardly done anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the skirmish fire. Not that there's going to be a huge amount of it anyway, but we're going to move on to skirmish fire, and then we'll move on to artillery and any volley firing as well. Alright, we've got our bit of skirmish fire going on over here. We've got the British 95th firing at those French skirmishers down below them. So look, see what they've got. They've got 1, 2, 3 hits. That causes 1 hit. They already had 2 casualties, so they're going to lose another base there. So that actually reduces the French fire as to what they can do there. So they are going to return fire, but they're only going to be using 2 bases. 1 base, sorry, so 2 dice. That's a hit. So that also reduces the 95th by 1 as well. So yeah, that's an eye for an eye. Then whilst I'm over here, I'm just going to do the artillery. So we've got the horse artillery are going to fire once again up at that square. This is a standard battery fire, but with an extra dice as well for the firing. So extra casualty dice. So the casualty dice has caused 1, but 4 is again another fatigue casualty to them. But they are slowly grinding that British unit down. This French unit here is in column. It's going to fire up at the British up there. It's just firing 1 casualty dice. If it rolls a 1, it takes a casualty itself and loses fire discipline. So it loses its fire discipline. It takes a casualty, but it was worth a shot, wasn't it? Literally. Okay, I've got a bit of skirmishing over here, and then also I'm going to get some volley fire as well from the British over here. So we've got the skirmishers firing first of all. I'm just going to do this before I flip over onto the artillery fire in the centre, because there's quite a lot of that. So I'm just doing this. This is all slightly out of sync as it should be, but it's not going to. What I do here is not going to affect what happens in the centre. So we've got 3 French skirmishers firing at the British line. Let's have a look. That is 2 casualties. So they've already got 1 anyway, so that's taking them up to 3. So they are going to volley fire back. They are just in range. They are going to volley fire back at them. So they're just rolling 2d6 there. They are drilled and in line, so they get a casualty dice for that. But they are firing on inferior volley because they are firing at skirmishers. So let's see what they get. 6. They have caused 1 casualty at least, and a 6 on the inferior volley is another casualty, so 2 casualties on those skirmishers. Then before we go into combat, we've got the artillery fire. So we've got the British battery up here firing down at the French guns. Then they're going to get these 2 French guns, and they are either going to fire at the infantry or possibly at that artillery battery. I'm not sure yet. I'm not worked it out yet. So we're firing at that French column. So this is going to be a normal, standard battery fire, but they get a plus dice, extra dice for firing at a column. So let's have a look. The dice hasn't done anything, the casualty dice, but they have scored an 8, which is plus 1 hit, so that takes them up to 2. And they would have a discipline test if it was canister range. It isn't. Right, now we've got the 2 French guns, and they are going to fire, and I think it's probably worth them trying to silence those guns themselves, I think. So we're going to start with the regular unit. So it's literally just a standard battery fire from these ones. Let's have a look. We've got an 8. An 8 is 1 casualty on them, so they already had 3, so that's taken them up to... Sorry, they had 2, so that's taken them up to 3. And then we've got the guard, but guard guns, if they were at canister range, they would get an extra dice in for firing, but they're not, so they're just firing normally. So let's see. They are getting a 10. Ooh, that's good for them. They are a standard battery fire. 3 damage plus a discipline test as well, so that takes them directly up to 6 hits. So they are now worn, but they also get a discipline test on top of that as well. So the British, they are a line unit, so let's see what happens to them. That's a 7. They have passed it, so they're okay at least. They've not taken too much of a damage. Well, actually no, they haven't passed it. They become unformed. I do apologise, because they've taken 6 plus casualties. Well, never mind all that peripheral stuff. This is the interesting thing. This cavalry fight in the centre here, as you can see. Right, we'll go through it. So they're both starting with 5 each. Then we'll go on to the combat against the guns on the French right flank. So let's just check what we've got. We've both got fighting with 5 casualty dice. So the British have got glory, so they get an extra dice for that. As I say, this might be their last glorious run. They don't have Elan, but the French do, so they get an extra dice for that. They're not Lancers, but they are elite. The French are elite versus a lower grade, so they get another dice for that, takes them up to 7. Both of them are unformed, so they're going to take a dice off. The French are also elite cavalry, so they get another dice back. And they are a large regiment in line, but they're not formed, so they don't get an extra dice for it, not like last time. So 7 French dice against 5 British dice. Let's see who comes out on top this time. Honestly, if the Hussars break, I think it's game over. If the Hussars smash these up as well, I can't really see it happening, but you know, who knows. I'll re-roll that. That was cocked. So they have now got 3 hits. The French though have caused 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. That's probably more like it. So it's 4 French hits to 3 British hits. So cavalry versus cavalry, the French have won by 1. In the first round, they'll go unformed and then fight on, question mark. So there might be a second round of fighting here. Right, so the way this normally works is both players choose a dice number. The numbers that they can choose is, if they choose a 6, they will stand and reinforce. If they choose a 5 to a 2, they'll have a fighting withdrawal. Or if they choose a 1, they will withdraw. And you do this out of the sight of each other. Obviously, I'm playing solo, so I don't know what the opposition is going to choose. So what I'm going to actually do... Oh, I should put on the casualties as well here as well, shouldn't I? So the British have actually gone up to 7. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll a dice for both sides and just see what their results are, and then decide from there what happens. So just putting those casualty markers on while I remember. Right, so both are going to roll a dice, as I say, and then depending on what the results of those dice are, is what they decided to do. So So let's have a look. We've got a 6 for the British and a 3 for the French. So the British decided to stand and reinforce. Meanwhile, the French are doing a fighting withdrawal. Okay, so with a fighting withdrawal, the original unit fights the second round whilst conducting a fighting withdrawal. If the opposing side ordered stand and reinforce, which the British did, that player, British, may fight with either one or their 2 units, but not both. So what we can do is we can basically swap out the front unit for the second unit behind them, but they won't get the glory because the glory was given to the other unit, unfortunately for them. And then we fight another round of combat, and then the French will withdraw no matter what anyway, whatever the results of that are, but they will still fight. So we're going to reinforce, so we're basically swapping out. They are unformed and they're out, but then we're sending in fresh guys. They're also worn as well, they're worn and unformed. But they lose the glory because this is a different unit to the one that went in the first place. So these are just going to pile in. Let's bring these up again as support. So we go straight into a second round of combat. This and in buildings is the only time you'll fight 2 rounds of combat in once, and then the French will withdraw back again. So this time it's going to be slightly different. So we're starting with 5 for the British here, 5 for the French here. We shall work our way through this. The French are still fighting with Elan because it's the same unit, so they get an extra d6. They are elite versus lower grade, but they are unformed, but they don't have 6+ casualties. Now the British on their side, well, I think that's it. The British didn't get anything because I said they didn't get the glory, but they are elite cavalry, so they get it back. And they are still unformed, so they don't get their large regiment in line. That's it. So this time round the French have still got 7, but it's against 5. I think it was it 6 against 4 last time? I think it was, wasn't it? But again, the French really should win this, but they are going to withdraw as part of that fight anyway. So the Hussars are still doing a bloody good job. So let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits this time on the British. The British have caused 4 hits on the French though, so that takes them up to 7. That's definitely worn the French out. And what do we say we got? We got 5 hits on the Brits. That hasn't worn them, and then the French will withdraw and they'll fall back to behind their own units here, which are way back here. So it's a withdraw, not a retreat at least. They'll lose their Elan as well, but they remain unformed. Okay, we've got our second combat here. This is the French column going in against those the guns. I think they're probably going to win this here. They'll probably sweep them away, I would have thought. So the infantry are starting with 5 combat dice, the artillery are starting with 3 combat dice. So let's just go through. Neither have got glory. The French have got Elan, so they get an extra dice in there. They're not lancers, obviously. They're not elite and veteran. They're not formed higher grade versus recruits. They're not recruits in line. They British are unformed, so they lose 1 for that. They also have 6+ casualties, so they lose 1 for that. They will always go down to 1. They'll always roll 1 dice minimum. Infantry modifiers. Elite infantry, no, they're not large, they're not attacking a village, strong point or redoubt. They are going up a steep slope, so we're going to take that off them as well, and they're not in line versus cavalry, and that's it. So as I say, I think this one should be a foregone conclusion in respect to the French. So let's just see what happens here though. You never know. We've got 3 6s for the French and only 1 6 for the British, so they have won by 2+. So this is basically infantry versus infantry. I can't see the artillery one on there, so infantry versus artillery. So I'm assuming it's infantry versus infantry on the combat results. And it is basically winner takes the ground and the losers retreat. The losers will retreat off the table, so that's them disappeared. So yeah, they've cleared the guns off and got rid of them, but they have taken 1 casualty in doing so, so that's worn them out. But they've cleared a bit of the thing. They can't actually move any further forward because that would bring them in contact with the British on their flank. So fortunately for them, but they have cleared off that battery. Okay, we're back onto turn 9 now, so we're straight onto our ADCs. Let's see what we get. The French have got 2. God, they are suffering badly with those, aren't they? And The British have got 3. So again, all to play for here. Right, I'll distribute those and then we shall do the initiatives. So the ADCs have been distributed thusly. This brigade, British brigade up here, has got a re-roll because I want the Scots to attack, to charge in here if they can, if possible. They've also given a brigade re-roll to the cavalry and a glory tasking as well, because they want them to charge in down here, because we've still got these guys faltering. So we're going to try and charge in here, and if they disappear for whatever reason, they may go for the guns, or they may go for the cavalry over here. We'll just see. I think this is their target really, priority, just because they're directly ahead of them. I've also given the French, obviously they've got to give this is wavering, so they're faltering, should I say, so they need a ADC with them, which I've given. And then finally the cavalry, the French cavalry, have been given a brigade order, simply because I want to get these up here doing something at least, and maybe fighting in that centre if they can get through and cause some chaos with this, the infantry over there. So let's start with our brigade rolls. We'll start with the British first of all. So the first one over here, we are rolling a 3, so they don't need to re-roll, so they're okay. Second British one over here, what have they got? A 4, so they're okay. And then finally the cavalry, they do get a re-roll if they need it. A 6, they don't need it, so they're okay. So no hesitant British units in this case. Meanwhile, the French start with their cavalry. 2, they are hesitant, so we'll just stick a hesitant marker down on them, just so I remember who is who and what is what. This French unit in the centre here, 6, they're fine to crack on. We'll do the reserves. They've got a re-roll. The 4, they're fine, so I'll just take that brigade off, so I know that they've gone. I'll take the British ones off as well, so I know they've gone as well. And we've also got the Guard. They get a re-roll automatically because they've got a bold commander, because they're elite. So 4, they're fine to crack on, so they might get a charge in with their cavalry against the British. Mind you, they're a bit too far away, I think, so they won't make it. Then we've got the test for the faltering brigade. We've got to do a test for them, so let's check, see what happens. Will they remain wavering, or will they actually do something and pull themselves together? So let's see. They are line. They've got a 1. Save qui peut. Right, this is bad. This is basically save yourself. Everybody run. So dispersals. All current retreaters, none of them are. Any unit within 2 casualties dispersal point at that point, and the brigade skirmish line would disappear. None of them are. These guys have got 7. However, all other brigade units retreat plus 4 dice casualties. This is why I got confused before. Artillery goes low on ammunition, so that's those ones over there, so we'll put a low on ammo. The artillery has barely done anything, and no other actions are permitted. The brigade remains faltering, so these, when they retreat, they actually retreat, I think it's something like 10 centimetres automatically, or they have to fall back behind their enemies, their cover, so they're going to have to fall back to about here, so they're going to get pushed back even further, but they're taking 4 casualties on each of these brigades, each of these battalions. So the first ones, let's see how many they get. They've taken 4, so that's 11, so they are virtually broken. So what happens there is that actually means that the cavalry can't charge into them, because these are going to be disappeared off. So these will have fallen back through here. They've retreated, so because they've retreated, they've gone through the French cavalry, so that is actually going to unform the French cavalry as well. So both of these French cav are now unformed. I'll put that there so I remember. I'll just take that ADC off. These ones come back. Well, I didn't roll for them yet. Let's see how many casualties they take as part of this. They've taken 3. So that puts them up to 7, so they are no longer fresh. If they get another retreat, they're done for. So they fall back. Do we take 4 casualty dice on the skirmish, on the brigade skirmish line? I think we probably do, to be honest, because they are falling back as well. So let's see, they've taken 3 more, so that means they will lose a base. So that's off, and yeah, bad times. So they're all still unformed. They are still faltering. So for the initiative, the French have got 4 dice because they've got a faltering brigade. They've also got 1 hesitant brigade as well. So that's 4 dice in total against the British 2, and they take the lowest. So the British have got 7. The French, unfortunately, have got a double 1. Whammy. Right, so that means the British are going to get the initiative, and of course they're going to take it. Okay, let me just quickly go through some of the moves and the charges that have occurred in turn 9. So, first charge was by the Hussars. They've now gone into the guns because their original targets disappeared off. The Scots on the hill have also charged into this battalion here on the hill to try and knock them off. Meanwhile, a couple of French battalions have just moved forward. These guys have reformed. They've stopped firing like lunatics. We've also moved forward the reserves as well for the French. They've brought these up. They've got they've brought the these are the dragoons, and they are facing off against those hussars just to see what happens. We'll see if there's they don't get a chance to charge this turn, but they certainly might do next turn depending on what happens with these guns. And we brought the guard forward as well, just push them around where these hussars are reforming at the moment, and they're going to probably try to fight with these infantry who came down the hill, who are going to be fighting with skirmishing here. So that's all the movement done. Apologies, I realise that I've actually got to sort out the charges before I should have done that moving. Doesn't really matter, it's not going to change anything major at this point. So we're just going to go straight on to sorting out these charges. So first one is the hussars piling into those guns. The guns are going to react by firing at the charging horses first of all. So that is just going to be a standard battery. It is canister, so they're going to be firing an extra 2 casualty dice. It's also a elite battery as well at canister range, so they get another dice. That's pretty much it. So they're just going to get their 2 dice plus 3 casualty dice. It's might be quite bad for that for the chargers. They've taken 1 casualty straight away from the casualty dice, and then they've scored an 8 on the standard battery fire. So that's another hit, and it's also a discipline test as well. So that takes them up to 7. So this charge might not go as well as they were hoping, which I think is about right at this point for these guys. So a discipline test on those British Hussars. They have 6+ casualties, so they are no longer line, they are now reservists. So we roll those dice, and they've got a 3. A 3 for them is reservists. 4 or less, they will retreat. So they take 4 casualty dice of more casualties, and so basically they just halted that attack in as it came in. So let's see how many casualties they take. They take another 2, so that tips them up to 9 in total, and then they retreat back, and they're cavalry, so they're going to retreat quite far back. They need to get back behind their own side, I think. Okay, so over here we've got the Scottish attacking down that hill. So the French are actually just going to fire at them as they come in. Let's just see what happens. It's only a casualty dice. They've caused 1 casualty. It's not enough to do any disruption on that charge though, but it does cause them. They do end up with 4 casualties now. I'll just swap that over, and they've got them now. So we're both rolling 2 dice. Actually no, the French are rolling 3d6 because they've got more than 6 casualties, so that's all it is. So and they're taking the lowest score as well of course of that. This is for the charge itself. So the Scottish have scored 8, the French unfortunately for them have scored 2. I don't think we've got any re-rolls because there's nobody really supporting them, because these were unformed because they were just shooting. The British do have a re-roll because they did have the Dutch behind them. These guys have only just moved up. I just moved them out of sequence, so they don't count as the support for the French. So so we basically 6 or more highest, so that's victory. So infantry versus infantry, the lead defending unit retreats plus 6 dice casualties. So what's happened here is they basically pushed them back. These weren't 10 centimeters between them, but these guys have fallen back, and they're going to take 6d6 casualties. They will have stopped about here because that's where the other unit was before. So that's why you shouldn't do things out of sequence. So they stop there. They take 6d6 of casualties. We'll roll for those. This might disperse them if they get all 6. They haven't got all 6, but they have got an extra 3. So that's those guys there. Right, now the British infantry can move forward, and they can either charge on or take the ground, and they can recover a casualty for charging on. They could volley fire as well if they wanted to, straight into those French that's in front of them. So infantry in line will move 10 centimetres, and they can contact the closest enemy to them, which would be these guys, and they would fight them with elan. So let's do it, come on, pile them in. They are Scottish Highlanders afterwards, so they will go straight into combat with these at the end of the round, and they will do it with a little bit of elan. Might not work out, but you know, they might break another French unit, you never know, and push them back. So we've got our skirmishing going on here. 95th, they're just rolling 4 dice now, so they've only got 2 bases left. So let's have a look. Not a single hit. French are firing back. They're rolling 4 dice because they've got 3 bases left. Skirmish battle been going on. They've only hit once, so no effect. Once again, I'm going to do the artillery and other things here. Now we've actually got another set of guns here, so they can actually fire up over those skirmishers, the units at the top of the hill. So both of these are going to fire this time. So for our first standard battery fire, this is from the horse artillery. These are also getting that plus casualty dice because of their being in square. So we've got a casualty and also an 8, which is another casualty. It's not a discipline test, so that's 2 casualties on them, so that takes them up to 8. And then we've got the same with the other guns as well, they're doing the same thing. This time it is a 7, that's another casualty plus another casualty, so that's 4 casualties on them, so that's 10. They've nearly been shot to pieces in the square, those poor guys. Right, we're going to come over here and do the skirmish firing from the skirmishers at those Brits there. They've got 4 bases, so that gives them 5 dice. Hitting on 4s up of course, so that's 2 hits. That just causes 1 damage on them. Now, this isn't going to affect anything else, so I'm just going to jump into the volley fire with these British, firing back out the skirmishers. It's going to be inferior fire, but they do get that extra dice because they are British line firing. So let's roll for that. They've got a 10. And their 3 doesn't score anything for their casualties, but they do have a 10, and that is 4 hits and a discipline test on those Frenchies. So that will be 3 and then another one there, so actually taking off 2 of those bases. So I bloody hell giving them a right black eye there. And they also get a discipline test as well, so let's just see if they pass that. They need a 7 up basically. For this, a 5 is they become unformed, I believe. Now we're going to do the guns over here, so we're moving on to the British guns there. Unfortunately they have 6 casualties, so they are firing inferior battery fire, but they are firing at this unit, so they do get a +1 casualty dice. What they really need is as high as possible here, because if they can cause 3 casualties on that unit, they will disperse them. So let's see what they get. Oh, double 6 and a 4. Well, I'll re-roll that because it was out. Oh, it's a 4 again. It did go out to the thing. Right, so double 6 is 3 casualties and a discipline test. Sorry, 2 casualties and a discipline test plus that other hit. So that's actually 3 hits in total. So that's enough to break them. So they are now dispersed. So they dispersed another one. So that means that we have another faltering brigade for the French. But now we've got our French guns. This battery down here is just going to fire at the British battery up there. So this is an inferior fire. So let's have a look. We've got a 9 on an inferior battery. Inferior battery fire is that is a 1 casualty, so that takes them over to 7. Okay, so we're going into the combat. There's only 1 combat, and that's the Scottish attacking the French down here. So let's just see. We're both of them are starting with 5 combat dice. The British have got elan. The Scottish have got elan, so they get an extra 1. No, they're British anyway. Lancers with elan, no. Elite and veterans, no. Formed higher grade versus recruits, no. Neither of them are unformed. Neither of them have got 6+ casualties. Right, any infantry modifiers that we got in here? I don't think there is. Attacking up a steep slope, no, they're defending down the steep slope, so it doesn't really matter. So the British have only got 1 extra dice against the French. So let's see how this goes. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits for the British and 1, 2, 3 hits for the French. That's about average, isn't it? So 5 versus 3 is a combat win of 2+. Infantry v infantry. The winner takes the ground and the losers retreat. So the French will fall back behind here. That means they will then unform these. They will come back to about here because they can form up behind a formed unit. So they're there. The other ones are now unformed. So they take an unformed marker here. This guy is back here somewhere. Just put the brigadier back. They had 1 casualty with them, so they'll take that with them, but they will take another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's warned them. And the British can move forward. They will take another 4 casualties. So that takes them up to 8. So they're pretty badly battered by that, but they have won. And they can, if they want to, advance, I think up to about 5 or 10 centimetres. They don't want to because that will bring them into contact with the enemy, and they don't want to do that. So that's literally it. Yeah, so now we've got another battering for the French down there. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. Right, I just want to give you a quick catch up as to where we are now that we're into turn 10 is just about to start. So let's see, we've still got a faltering brigade back here. The cavalry for the guard are battered. They're back here. They only need to take a few more casualties. Those British cavalry, the hussars, that pile through everything, cut through everything like butter, they're there, but they are pretty battered at this point, so they've fallen back. Not very happy. We've got the French guard pushing in here. They might try and do a charge against that British unit in front of the slope. But then over here we've also got the French heavy cavalry starting to make a breakthrough, and then over here we've got the attack failed once again, and this time this brigade is also faltering. So I think I'm going to see how this next turn goes, and I think we'll probably have to call the battle then. I just kind of want to see if the guard get into action over here. If they do, and what happens to them might be of interest, but I think, to be fair, I think at this point the French efforts are pretty much defunct. They've still got to get up onto that, up onto the crossroads. Just to show you, these are not French support reserves. These are their casualties so far. So far they've lost 4 battalions dispersed, and this are not casualties. These are the supports. These are the British supports. Heavy cav and the other battalions still haven't made it onto the table yet. So there's plenty of fresh units for the British to bring on if they really want to. So yeah, let's just play one more turn at least and see what happens. But I don't think the French can do anything here, to be honest. So I think at this point the French game is over, but you know, let's just play at least one more turn, get it up to turn 10 and just see where we're at. The French have got 3 ADCs, whereas the British have got 5. So there's the 5 British and then 2 French ones. So this is not going to be good because they've got to put both of those onto their faltering units. Right then, this is a big one. I'll show you exactly what we've done. Obviously the French have to put one of their ADCs on each of the faltering units. So they've done that. That's wiped out theirs. Meanwhile, the British have put a brigade reroll up here, simply because they want to get them doing something. They put a brigade reroll up here for the cavalry as well, so they can try and redraw those back up the hill because they're a bit damaged. They don't want to get hit by this heavy cav at this point. And then we've got an infantry assault, but we've also gone for the CNC award of Now's Your Time. And this is the Inniskillen. It's not Maitland, it's the Inniskillen. They are going to charge, if they get the initiative, obviously, into the Old Guard. Now is your time. So basically they will be able to volley at them as they go in. And I think they'll probably actually volley at the... they'll charge in, then fire as they go in. So... yes, and they've also been able to reduce a casualty off themselves and also off that battery as part of the brigade as well. So this is probably like the perfect time to do it at this point in the battle. So what we need to do now then is just to see who is hesitant and who isn't. So I'm going to work my way through the Brits, and then we'll obviously do those morale tests for the faltering units for the French. So the first one's up here. The British on their left flank. Brigade reroll, get a brigade reroll. They've got a 3, they don't need it. These automatically follow orders anyway, because it's now's your time. And then the cavalry, they've got a reroll as well. Let's just see if they failed the first one. They get a reroll though. Let's have a look. 6, they passed it, so they're okay. So no hesitance over there. Then we're going to work our way through the French. So we've got their cavalry. See if they can actually get themselves out of the mire that they're in. 2, no, they are hesitant again. This cavalry unit just has been pretty dreadful. All they've done is force a unit into square. Then we've got the reserves, so let's roll for those. 6, they're fine. Then we've got the guard. We've got to roll for those. They do get a re-roll because they're bold. They failed the first one. Do they get another go? Let's see what happens. No, they are hesitant. So the narrative is absolutely playing out here, isn't it? Okay, right. Now we've got to roll for the brigade faltering tests. So we've got 2 of them, of course. So I'm going to do this one down here in the bottom first of all. So these are the ones that are right on the very edge of the table. If they get another retreat, what I did forget is that their skirmish line should have disappeared when they got there. They saved their self-quiper, their save yourself roll. So let's just see what they get now. We roll again for them. It's a 2. They are wavering, so they are still unformed. They are still faltering. They don't fall back or anything though. But they take 2 casualty dice on each of their units. So they're gonna go for that because it's better than retreating. So the first ones, these ones first actually. They've got 7. They take another 2 casualties, puts them up to 9. Now unfortunately, the next one, they only need to take 1 casualty and they have dispersed, so another unit will have gone. So let's have a look. They've taken a 6 and a 3. That is 1 casualty. That unit has also dispersed as well then. So they are absolutely banjaxed at this point. And also the artillery should also roll 2 as well. Forget about them. They are unformed, but they haven't taken any casualties, at least for them. Then we're going to go over onto this one over here. So this is the new one now. So let's just see what happens with these guys. A 1. Save yourselves. Right, dispersals. All current retreaters. Any unit within 2 casualties of its dispersal point and this brigade skirmish line has disappeared. This is what I forgot last time, so they're gone. None of the others are currently within, but they all retreat with 4 casualty dice. Artillery is low on ammunition. They now take 4 dice casualties each. So let's just do those. So the front ones over here, they're already on 2. They've taken another 2 there, so that tips them up to 4. And I'll withdraw them all in a second. The next one's over here. These take 4. They take 3 actually out of the 4, so that takes them up to 7. And then the next one here, they're already on 6. So they've taken another 2, so that puts them up to 8. And the artillery also takes 4 as well, with only 1 of them count. Okay, this is a bit bad. It says here, infantry retreat 30 centimeters, which is going to bring them to back to about here, I think. Let's just double check where they should end up. The guns can just get behind the cavalry, so I'm going to bring those back to here. So they will. They'll get in there at least, but they are retreating. They're also they're going to be limbered up as well. Just get rid of those. But then the rest of them, it says if retreating on 6+ casualties, they must fall back to a friendly close order unit or disperse. So what have we got here? Let's just see. These ones are on 8. They can just make it just behind the cavalry and then behind their own men. They can bounce behind that, and they're on 6+ casualties. So they're on 8 casualties. So they're flown all the way back there. Then we've got, take the brigadier with them. These ones are they're not on 6, but they have fallen back to here. So let's just put them there. And it's the other ones here that I think is the issue, or is going to be the issue. There's a brigadier, sorry, that was the ADC. These ones are not able to fall back behind their own, so they will disperse because they are over 6 casualties. So another battalion has disappeared from the French. They're down to 2 now, so they're down to half their strength. Well, after that absolute calamity that's just hit the French, we now have to do the initiative. So the British are getting 2, meanwhile the French are getting their normal 2, but because they've got 2 faltering brigades, they've also got 2 hesitant brigades, so they're actually getting an extra 4 dice. So 6 dice, and they're taking the lowest. British are just rolling their straight dice. Let's have a look. British have got 8, the French, their lowest is 3. So unfortunately for the French, the British are taking the initiative, and we're going to go straight into the charges, and it's now your time. So let's see if the Inniskillings can break the guard. First of all, they get to fire at the skirmishers with 2 extra dice as well. So this is against the skirmishers, so it's going to be an inferior volley, but at least they get to volley at them and maybe clear them out and then move them anyway. Unfortunately for them, having those skirmishers in front. Let's just see, we got 1 casualty from the casualty dice, and then a 6 on the inferior volley is 1 other casualty. So 2 casualties on those skirmishers. They are going to shove them out of the way as they charge in anyway, so they will disappear out of the way somewhere. Let's just put them over here, and they are unformed anyway, so they disappear to there. Now the charge will come in, and because they're using infantry assault, they will also drag in that light unit with them. So charging in here, and take the infantry assault and all their other bits and pieces, and their brigadier as well. Sorry, commander-in-chief in fact, not just the brigadier. They take their 3 casualties with them, and then we drag in the light infantry behind. So they're going to be in there as well, and then they're going to pile into the guard. The guard are going to fire at them before they come in, so it's just a 1 dice. It's a casualty dice basically. A 3 is no effect, but at least they don't have any fire discipline. So that's the charge. There are no others because nobody else is in range at this point, so we'll just go on to movement, and I'll sort that out now. So very little has happened in the movement phase. I'll just show you very quickly. The Scottish should just pull back up onto the line up on here again. As with the Brunswicks, they have just reformed into a line up there. The 95th have just moved forward a little bit from where they were. The cavalry, British cavalry, have moved over to more towards the crossroads themselves. These cavalry down here, they kind of just stayed where they were. I wasn't sure what to do with them. They're pretty battered, but the French heavy cavalry, for all it's worth, have now started to move out and fan out a little bit in front of everybody else. Obviously the guard couldn't move, so that's pretty much where we are at the moment. So what we'll do is we'll get onto the skirmish firing. Just checking there actually isn't any, so we'll go straight over onto the cannon fire, and I think there's only one little there's a couple of bits of it, so we'll do those. So first British firing is coming in from here down to these guys down here. It's going to be inferior fire. It is effective range, but they do have 6+ casualties, so we'll just roll the dice. Inferior, so that's an 8. An 8 on inferior fire is just 1 casualty on those French there, so that's, I thought that might be about the case, to be honest. That's the best that they could have done. And then we've got the French horse artillery just firing down here once again at that square over there. They are 2 casualties off their dispersal points, so they might actually smash them up in the square, so do what the cavalry didn't do. So this is again standard battery fire, and they do get a casualty dice because of the square, but he's done nothing, and then they've got a 4. This was their best chance. They got a 4, so that's a casualty on themselves, so that takes them up to 5 casualties. So again, doing really well there, lads. You know, literally, there's a barn door over there. Can you hit it? Right, we are now going into the charge. There is only one charge, and it's the Inniskilling against the Old Guard. Let's just see what happens. Right, first of all, both of them get 5 combat dice each, or casualty dice each. So let's just see what additions we get for them. Neither of them got Elan, neither are Lancers obviously, but it is Elite versus Veteran or a lower grade, so the French do get an extra one. They're not recruits in line, they're not informed, neither of them have 6+ casualties. They are Elite, so they do get that extra dice for the French, and this is it. So it is basically comes down to 7 versus 5. So will the French be unlucky? Will the Skillings be lucky? Have they got the look of the Irish on them? Let's see what happens. So the Skillings have got 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. The Guard have got 2 hits, so that's a +2 for the Skillings. God, that was lucky, wasn't it? So let's see, let's mark those up. So they're now up to 5 casualties for the Inniskillings, and the Guard have taken, we said, 4 casualties. So that's a win by 2 for the Skillings. So the winner takes the ground and the losers retreat. The Guard have retreated, they're broken. So these will then fall back behind their formed unit here. So they're back here now, taking Mr. Brigadier with them, or at least he can drop down to there. Because they've now gone through that unit in front of them, that informs them as well. So they're now unformed. Now the Skillings could move forward if they wanted to. I don't really think there's space to do so, but they've done what they needed to do, and they've smashed through the Guard. Oof. Right, I am definitely leaving it at that. We are just about to hit turn 11. I think the any more French madness here would just be literally that, pure madness. The Guard have just been defeated by the Inniskillings. They've been pushed back, they are retreating, so they're going to have to reform anyway, so they can't do anything. The other ones are unformed. Even if they pull themselves back from it, potentially the heavy cavalry could come in and smash up that British cavalry here next turn, potentially. They probably would do, they'd probably do some damage because they're on their last legs anyway. The rest of the Guard are sitting back here. We've got this faltering brigade which still needs another roll. It's down to its last battalion here. This brigade is also faltering, so they may fall back as well, and they are also, you know, down to 2 battalions out of 4. The only fresh units are the French cav over here, which did bugger all, to be perfectly frank, and the heavy cavalry over here, which again are at this point just too far away to get to the objective. The British line has stood steadied, has taken a real pounding, but has stayed steady. Absolutely fantastic game. Let's just have a quick look at the casualties. So the French casualties are here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 battalions destroyed. The British only lost a battery of guns and a couple of units of 95th. And as I said before, that is their support, still waiting to come onto the table, nowhere near yet. So that would just smash its way through what was left of the French anyway, I think, the heavy cavalry. So yeah, 2 more turns, really nothing would really be able to be done by the French. They're in such a bad situation. That was a terrible attack by them. Completely different to the previous game of GDA that I played though. Men of the match, without a doubt, the Hussars, 15th and the 7th, brilliant attacks from them. Also over here the Scottish as well, and then finally the Inniskilling down here as well, just pushing the Guard back as well. So that was, you know, well worth doing, I think. A real good use of that. Now's your time CNC thing. I hope you've enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. Fantastic game, really spot on game. Every time I play GDA I've always enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. If you have, as always, do hit that subscribe button, check out Patreon and also the channel memberships, and you'll get videos like this early and as free as well. And I will see you in the next Storm of Steel video.